Yeah, they hate when you elevate. You're stacking up losses, I'm handing them out, yeah, I had to go delegate. It feel like I'm floating, I'm lost in the moment, I swear I could levitate. They never believed that I would really fly, I had to go demonstrate. I had to set them straight. They hate when you elevate, elevate, elevate. They hate when you elevate, elevate, elevate. Yeah, they hate when you elevate, elevate, elevate. They hate when you elevate, yeah. Way too fly, yeah, I'm feeling myself. Ain't no chance I'm coming down, no. Got a soul view to myself, yeah. Why would I give it up? Why do they wanna come take my place? I work too hard for it, don't need a replacement. This my vocation, now I got rollies all in rotation. Hop on a jet just to take a vacation. Remember the moments was trapped in the.
All right. Salute. And good morning, good people. Clap it up for yourself. A lot of boxing to talk about. Clap it up for yourself, man. Y'all want to do this? Y'all want to do this? I'm going to do it like this. Salute to everybody in the building, man. Clap it up for you guys, man. Clap it up for yourselves. Clap it up for boxing. We back at it again. It's another one in the bag. We got a lot to talk about this morning. Do we got a lot to talk about? Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. A lot of topics, maybe not as many topics. We're probably going to, we're going to hang out. We're going to revisit 147 a little bit. News coming out, Ennis speaks out a little bit, kind of gives some perspective on what to expect from the Ennis team moving forward as far as their whole entire outlook at 147 pounds is concerned, and what their future may hold. Really put some perspective to what we've been looking at coming off of this huge victory you had this weekend, ultimately unifying in the division, becoming a Ring Magazine lineal champion. And as Bozy would say, he considers him to be the undisputed champion at this point at 147 pounds. That's putting some perspective on it. But ultimately, if Boots Ennis's whole idea was to become undisputed at 147, if that box somehow is mentally been checked off for him, then we'll talk about that as well, right? We'll also talk about Turki Alalshikh. Obviously, you guys saw it in the thumbnail. Turki Alalshikh making some big acquisitions. While everybody's sleeping, you know what I mean? Turkey's awake, and as Emanianis Stanionis said, all gas, no brakes, right? So we're gonna talk about that and why, what's going on, why is it happening with the top ranked fighters, right? It's the top ranked fighters that seem, well, at least right now, I mean, it seems like every hour or at least every day, new findings are coming out that these fighters are signing these quote unquote Riyadh or Ring Magazine ambassador deals, which we got to talk about that as well. What exactly is a ambassador deal? Is this a new way of saying you signed a deal, you have a new promoter, you have a new, what is this whole entire ambassador deal thing? This ambassador of Ring Magazine. We've seen Jared Anderson there. We've seen Terrence Crawford obviously become an ambassador, and it's just, this word is just being moved around quite freely. We got to talk about it, but listen, we got to talk about that and put some perspective on that, obviously. Then, of course, going into the heavyweight division, not of course, but I want to speak on the heavyweight division. Moves are being made as we are getting news that undisputed heavyweight championship fight maybe be getting finalized. Maybe getting finalized between Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. That's awesome to a degree, right? But, there's other parts involved that have to also be kind of like put in perspective. Usyk petitioned the WBO to relax. As the WBO did order for him to fight against Joseph Parker, but in the spirit of making an undisputed fight, the WBO did go ahead and co-sign Alexander Usyk's idea. We'll talk about that. We got to talk about Daniel Dubois and his IBF mandatory and Derek Chisora. Although the IBF hasn't activated that up, it may come up. And, ultimately, what does Daniel Dubois have to do in order to keep his belt to make sure that's an undisputed championship fight that he's dealing with? And look, if they were to activate it, let's say they were to activate, we'll talk about it, right? I mean, it may pay to let it go, right? And go for the unification. Be a unified champion, fight Derek Chisora for an undisputed. Who knows, right? definitely want to jump into that heavyweight division. Of course, yesterday we left off talking about Conor Benn and Chris Eubanks, how the fights become very intriguing, right? Very interesting fight, a blood feud, as the fathers did fight years ago. And it looks like the sons are going to continue the tradition, I guess, that they're going to make of fighting each other right now. But there's some outside intangibles moving on here as far as weight concerns, and Chris Eubank being down at 160, competing at that level, and Conor Benn obviously going up to 160 as well to compete there. We'll talk about that, talk about their plans after the fight, what's to come of it, right? We'll break it down. Let's salute to some of the people in the building. Shout out to Eastside Easy, showed up very early this morning, showing some love. Shout out Eastside Easy, man. That's grassroots right there, man. One of the winners of the big Charles Edward Cheese giveaways here. Says, ATP, another day of talking this good boxing talk. Salute Claymore and Ray. Ray should be here soon, by the way, guys. Smash the like button, chat, let's build. Yeah, definitely take his advice. Do that. Let's make sure we're hitting that like button as we're in the building, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it. You guys know I say it every single day. Shout out to AK Crowder in the building. Blessings, brother Claymore. Blessings, brother Ray. Blessings to you, AK Crowder. Always sending out those blessings, and we stay receiving, and I receive that blessing, man. Definitely appreciate the support for the channel, man. Thank you, man. Mo Taylor in the building. Salute to you. Says, Clay, what's good? Yo, what's good with you, Mo Taylor? Mr. Big Play Bray, salutes to the whole entire family in the room right now. ATP Combat family, salute you right back. Big Play Bray, thank you. Good morning, Cameron Fields in the building, says, good morning, peace and blessings to you and the chat. Peace and blessings to you, Cameron. So happy to have you here this morning, man. Salute to you. Well, we got Keith Tucker, of course, in the building. What's upper? Let's hear the latest in these boxing streets. That's what we're going to talk about for sure, man. Press says, Clay Money, I receive it. I receive it. I receive it. I receive it. Yes, thank you, man. Clay Money, I like that, man. AK Crowder, Mac Majestic in the building, says salute, and salute back at you. YG Knight in the building, salute to you, King. Says salute, Clay. I appreciate the work you put into the sport, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate you recognizing the work, man. Shout out to my wife, Mrs. Rain, in the building. She's supposed to be at work working right now, guys, but she's supporting, taking the time to support me. I appreciate her, man. That's the other half right there, man. The better half, may I add. Salute to DGO082 in the building. Say big up, Claire. Big up back to you, DGO82. Thank you for being in the room today, man. You guys could have been anywhere. Clearly, it's prime time for boxing talk around this time of the day. So if you're here right now, I truly understand and appreciate you here and understand what you may have sacrificed and what you're not watching in order to be here. I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Bradley 68, man, what up, player? What's good with you, man? We got a lot to talk about today. Oh, Bradley, I don't think we're going to be talking about Tank today. You know what I'm saying? So, you should be smiling right now like, oh, okay, good. We're going to be talking about some boxing. But we might. You never know. You never know. We might bring Tank up, right? Shout out to you, though, man. Blessings to AK Crowder and Cameron Field says salute to you, babes. Cameron says what's up. So let's break right into it, man. Let's not waste any time. Let's talk about it, man. We got to give him a new nickname, right? Mr. All Gas, No Breaks. He might take that name away from Emiantis Stanionis as Turki Alalshikh, amongst all the doubting, amongst all the talking going out in the streets about, potential issues he may be having with the WBC. Well, we see that he's actually hosting still and pushing forward with a WBC prospect Grand Prix that's supposed to be kicking off tomorrow, actually. 16 fights a day between the 17th and the 20th. That's kicking off. They said he lost interest in boxing. Well, and here he is signing more fighters, bringing more fighters, American black fighters, if it makes a difference to any of you guys, that he's bringing into the fold right now, assuring them big paydays and big fights, and more importantly, assuring us fans big paydays and big fights. Well, not big paydays, but big fights, right? Assuring that for us. They said he was going to leave the United States of America. He wasn't going to come back here no more. The prince of Saudi Arabia instructed him and ordered him not to do that, as Riyadh season and Saudi Arabia was the priority, and he was going to leave. And look, he's putting an event right there, Madison Square Garden. Also with a couple of new signed ambassadors to Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, and Devin Haney. And he continues to do it right now, right? He continues to do it. Hold on, we got somebody in the back, guys. Let's see. I think we got somebody in the back. Shout out to my co-host Ray MFN Davis. Good morning, good sir. How are you doing this morning?
I'm good, bro. How's it going, man? How's it going? I hear you up here cooking and frying. And salute to everybody in the building, to the great Miss Rain in the building. Salute Queen, Bradley 68. No tank today. I heard him. You know what I mean? Let's keep it fresh. Let's keep it boogie.
Yeah. No doubt, man. Everything's all good. We tapping into this this Turki Alalshikh.
Oh, I can't wait.
You know, he's just moving, right? He's just moving the needle, consistently moving the needle. And I know not everybody's been on board with that, with this whole entire movement, but I don't know if it makes a difference. He's not listening clearly to the hate. He's more embracing, I think, the love he's getting for what he's doing for boxing and changing and adding in the structure to the sport. And the optimism is just growing and growing with each move that he makes about how great this sport can be. It's always been a great sport, but it seems like it's resurging to the front lines as far as being the most entertaining, you know, exciting sport out there. And he's made some big power moves, right? So Turki, all gas, no brakes is what I put on there, because that's all he does, right? All he does is hit the gas. He doesn't hit the brakes. We've seen him make a move with Dana White, and he's making a whole league, right? A boxing league. We've seen him bring all the promoters together, erase all the invisible lines that were in the sand, and show the boxing space what it could look like if there were no more promotional across the street politics. And he's moving forward. And as the questions keep coming up as far as his genuine love or his genuine what's the word they say, what is your agenda, what is your purpose? Like, you know, somebody was trying to holler at your daughter, you might ask the dude, hey man, what is your for my daughter, what intentions, right? People question his actual intentions towards the game, and I think he just continues to respond to that with action and not words, right? Like the words are there, but he continues to stay active and responding in action. And look, it looks like he's made another power move. Yesterday we were talking about him signing Bruce Carrington over there, and we talked about all the possibilities. We talked about like 15 minutes about, man, Nick Ball, Monster Inoue, all these fights that could be made. But look, he went and made two other acquisitions. He went and brought in the WBO lightweight champion in Keyshawn Davis, and he's also signed up and coming prospect turned contender just recently, Abdullah Mason, over there into the fold, right? I mean, you know, it is what it is, right? These guys have gone over, signed these quote unquote ambassador deals with Ring Magazine. And my question is, what does it mean for boxing? What are we looking at? What is this? First of all, what is an ambassador deal? What are we talking about? What is an ambassador deal?
I think in my opinion, it looks like it gives you some type of leeway outside of your contract with your promoters. Like if they put on a fight, you know what I mean? The promoter gets a little piece of the pie from Turki himself, and you get your own bread. You know what I mean? Like you're dealing with him. You're still under your company, but your umbrella. But you're able to move inside fights. You know what I mean? Make fights outside of your stable. That's what it seems like. It has to be, because a lot of independent fighters are there, right? Are ambassadors.
Well, yeah, they're not even independent, right? I mean, let's be honest right now. You know,
Top Rank,
it seems like it's it seems like it's focused at Top Rank a little bit this go around, right? I mean, we've seen what they did with Ryan Garcia, and he's a Golden Boy fighter. Rolly Romero, Rolly didn't get the deal, right? He's just the fighter. Then you got they threw a shot at Tiafimo, gave him a 3-fight deal. He's a Top Rank fighter. Devin's always been an independent fighter. But it does look like they've done a lot with the Top Rank fighters, right? Jared Anderson, right? Like they've done a lot of that. And the question's got to be like, is Top Rank? We know Top Rank's heading into actually leaving ESPN, right? They're looking for a new home, and we're hearing about them working with Amazon a little bit. I'm hearing rumors about them going over to the Zone and putting fights on there. I'm even hearing rumors of potentially HBO getting back involved in the boxing.
Yes, I heard that.
Right, and allowing them to facilitate some of the fights. And now, you know, you're seeing them take fighters, the biggest stars that they have, right? As far as I think Shushu's up and coming. I think Keyshawn Davis is arguably the biggest guy over there damn near right now. You know what I'm saying? You could bring up Lomachenko, you can bring up Tiafimo in their own rights, but I think Keyshawn has just got an energy, a momentum that he's pushing forward. And then you have the guy who's very close behind him, getting a lot of attention, giving everybody the fights they want to, the kind of fights they want to see, right? And delivering that in Abdullah Mason. So Bob Arum is allowing this to happen. Is this like is this Bob Arum and Turkey partnering up? And, you know, Bob Arum put out information months ago saying that Turkey was done with America, right? That he wasn't going to put any more of the fights here in America. But here we are watching him put some of the best fighters he has on his roster right along with Turki Alalshikh. I mean, are you confused as me, or do you have some perspective and context?
Because we got to remember, Bob Arum is just the face of Top Rank right now.
Right.
The company ran by what's the name, Horowitz? No, I don't know his last name, but
right.
But Lehman, whatever his name is, but he's running Top Rank, and he's probably allowing this to happen because he sees bread in it, right? Bob Arum probably has other ideas, and I think also even if Bob Arum does have some statements, he was invited, he was welcomed, he was approached with certain things, and probably has a big say in this. I wouldn't be surprised if Bob Arum is behind a lot of these signings, ultimately, even though he said these things, because maybe he just doesn't want to look like he's the guy that's outside the room, because he has a lot of input in boxing. I remember Bob Arum's been in the game since the late '60s. So he has a lot of insight. He's a vault of knowledge in boxing in today's time. Why not keep him in the forum and let other people give him get bounce ideas off of him, is what I should say. And why wouldn't Bob be like, hey, you know what? I don't think you should keep going here. I think this, I like that. You know what I mean? Or maybe you should move this way. Maybe Bob put that out there. They put it out there on purpose. There's a lot of stuff these guys strategically do to upset the fan base, believe it or not, or what they call smoke and mirrors. So we never know.
Right. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I would go and say upset the fan base, but I think at the end of the day, good business is good business. And if there's good business out there, as businessmen, I'm sure they're trying to get involved with it. And it just seems like I said, you got a lot of people pushing back at the whole entire Turkey movement, but clearly there's a lot of the business that they're doing that's making sense. The big business is showing week after week, month after month, as we get closer to another year with this Turkey and Riyadh season movement going on. The big dogs are open and getting involved with the Turki Alalshikh conversation, and it is what it is, right? Everything else is just speculation and perspective. But when you see moves like this being made, when you see a Shushu Carrington and an Abdullah Mason and a Keyshawn Davis all at the same time going over and signing these quote unquote Ring Magazine ambassador deals, it's letting you know, Bob Arum's not stupid. He has him under contract. He's not in this to lose money. So clearly he's making money. So Turkey obviously still working with the promoters. The whole entire narrative about him tearing down the promoters or taking on the promoters or eliminating the promoters, this just throws holes in that conversation, right? Because he's continuing to not only put an olive branch out to the promoters, but the promoters are receiving it well as well and responding by taking the olive branch and taking the opportunities that Turkey's putting out there for them. So it is what it is, right? Bruce Carrington making his power move, signing with Ring Magazine. I'm sure there's some good money aligned with them contracts that they're sitting in front and signing. Here you see Abdullah Mason with his pen already on the paper, smiling like, yeah, bro, that was a no-brainer for me. And of course, you see Keyshawn Davis looking and saying, yeah, bro, what you thought? I was just going to sit here looking crazy. And in turn, and at the same time, raising up the whole entire conversation of what it's really all about is options and the power of options for fighters. When fighters have options, it's just a better thing. When it's a free market, when it's a competitive market and it's open, opportunities start to come out there, right? Because I'm sure if these guys had better moves that they could make, they'd be making those moves instead of this one, right?
Yes. Yep. And respectfully, a lot of these guys already already been in talks with promoters over there in England at the big ring. The Ring Magazine, what's the name party, right? So award party. So a lot of these guys were already there, and the promoters were already there. So this is probably something talked about. This is something that's probably put out there. I wouldn't be surprised if he said, "Hey, you're looking to work with us. You know what I mean? Put your name on the paper. We'll reach out to you if we're interested, and we'll go that route." We don't know what happened, but I guarantee you, something along them lines, Clay, happened where all these guys are allowed to make their moves. Now, what I want to say is, to your point, is I love how people like kicking Turkey's back in. Also, Eddie Hearn's back in. Now, I don't know what's up with them two, but it's like they can't step on a stone, hurt their foot, and be right. You know what I mean? I've never seen that in my life. Like they can't even cause their own pain and be right to themselves. It's just like people just like to be foot traffic for them. They want to be out there and spreading rumors and lies. I heard something about the Shakur thing. We talked about it. What? Like, you know what I mean? So Turkey doing his thing, man. Stop putting narratives out there. Stop ballooning things up with it more to be to TikTok the fan base, because it's not working. You know what I mean? You see right here that the boxers are making their decisions. So it's not what you're putting out there is false. So I mean,
not only are the boxers making their decisions, right, Ray, but the promotional companies are also in bed with the situation, and they're in the business of making money. And, you know, that's what it is, right? The action speaks louder than words. You know, you can push out, you know, you can let the rumors and you can bite onto the clickbait when they ask these front runners, like I don't mean to be disrespectful, but like Bob Arum is clearly like in another chapter in his life right now, right? He's in the and you can call it the golden years if you want, or whatever you want to call it, but he's definitely in that part of his life right now where he's definitely not holding and wielding as much influence at Top Rank as he used to back in his younger days. It just doesn't make sense, right? Eventually you want to pass over the rankings, or whatever you want to call it, whatever word best describes it. You want to pass over the reins, right, at some point or another, and gradually you got to assume that's happening. And a lot of I'd say about a good 2-3 times Bob Arum's not been on the same page as far as in comparison to what the company actually does, right? And the information he's putting out there about Turki Alalshikh. So the actions always got to speak louder than the words, because you can say whatever you want to say, but, you know, for Bob Arum to put out a statement saying that Turki Alalshikh was done with America, that the prince over there wasn't happy with the turnaround, you know what I'm saying, that happened with Terrence Crawford, but not only to see Turkey double down and publicly say, first of all, don't speak for me, you don't know what I'm doing. If I ain't say it, it's not real, but also to see Bob Arum to continue to allow fighters to be, if you want to call it, poached, or he's making deals to have these fighters, or Top Rank is, not Bob Arum, but Top Rank is continuing to make these deals and allow these fighters to go ahead and sign these deals that I believe they must be pretty damn lucrative, right? For these fighters. You know what I mean? So it speaks to the whole entire idea of Turkey's at war with American boxing promoters. Right, like Turkey's at odds, that there's this fantasy, and I call it a fantasy because for a lot of the content creation space, the fantasy seems to be it's us against Turkey, it's the American promoters against Turkey, but in real life, the American promoters and Turkey are at the table,
working together,
doing business, trying to make boxing great, right? That's what they're doing,
and like even just to say, like a De La Hoya, we know De La Hoya is playing games, right? Turkey ain't playing those games with him. He's doing what he's got to do. Turkey's still bending the knee every freaking time. I'm sorry, Oscar's still bending the knee to Turkey. Thank you for the eyebrow. You know what I mean? But every time. So when he's bending the knee, guess what he's doing? He's still sucking up the paws to Turkey and asking him, "Hey man, you know, let me get my guys here. Let's have a Latin night. Let's do this. Let's have a 5-for-5." He's still doing things under the watch of Turkey, regardless of how he feels publicly, regardless of his opinion. And I'm pretty sure Turkey's like, "Look, man, y'all go say what y'all want to say. Y'all go do what y'all want to do. When you're ready to fight or have your guys fight, come over here. We'll talk. We'll make business." And like you said, I think he wanted to get the promoters out the way, but the promoters see opportunity just like the fighters. So
yeah, it's there for everybody, right? And like, I mean, I don't know what's going on with Oscar, right? As far as his relationship with Turkey, as far as whether they're even at odds or anything like that, right? But it does seem like Turkey is all about the business and he doesn't care about the personal the talk. He doesn't care about the talk, right? He's not into that part of the game yet. Every now and then you might see him get into the talk and respond to somebody, but he's too busy putting pen to paper and actually moving the needle in the game. You know what I'm saying? Rather than sit here and fight narratives that are being pushed out there. Shout out to Mr. Big Play Bray said something, and I put it up on here because I thought it was interesting. And I just said, right, are we going to talk about Tank? I don't think so. But look, first let me read it, and I want to put some context to where I'm at with it, right? He says, I know people isn't going to like this, but Turkey putting pressure on Tank. He locked up 2 big names in 135. Listen, I think that's something fair to acknowledge, right? There is a certain elephant in the room when it comes to this 135-pound division. As of late, people have been talking, and it's been fading. And as far as these big fights being made with Tank Davis, well, you can see that it's becoming less and less of an issue. And guys, I want you to remember that Keyshawn Davis is definitely probably closer to, rather than further away from, going to 140, right? Like, that's probably where he's heading. Shakur doesn't seem to be the one that's going to head to 140 before Keyshawn does. And Keyshawn is clearly at 135 right now with purpose. He's had to make this fight with Edwin De Los Santos because that's the best fight he could make, right? So if the big fights aren't available for Keyshawn, let's see what happens with Zaur Abdullaev and Raymond Moratala as far as fighting for that interim, or I don't know, vacated, or maybe actual IBF title. I'm not sure how the Lomachenko situation is panning out as far as if they put him in recess or not at this point. But depending on what happens there and on Lomachenko's potential return or not, we don't know where Keyshawn's going to be, right? Like, Keyshawn might just make a move to 140 and make a power move up there. Frank Martin is waiting for him up there. He can leverage his title, that WBO title, up there at 140 and potentially make some moves up there. Who knows? Teofimo is still hanging out there. We got to talk about Teofimo a little bit later as well. An interesting interview he had where I kind of wonder where his mind state is at as far as this whole Boots Ennis fight is concerned, right? But I really, we'll talk about that. And also, we don't even know if Boots is gonna stay at 147. So T.O. may stay in campaign at 140 for all argument's sake. Obviously fighting that winner of Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia as well, but we don't know. The possibilities are endless now that Keyshawn Davis is under the same banner as Teofimo Lopez now. There are opportunities not only at 135, but 140. But yeah, you don't see fighters hanging their hat on the Tank Davis thing anymore, trying to make that fight like that's the biggest fight they can make. Turkey evens the playing field, right? He evens the playing field, and he makes opportunities show up in all different spaces in boxing, and really takes the pressure off Tank in many ways, but gives less weight on the Tank Davis, the everybody waiting on Tank Davis to send the offer in the mail thing. Like, oh, that's not, the Tank Davis sweepstakes isn't as shiny as it once was, what I'm saying, in some time past. And I think that's I don't know if it's on purpose, but I think it's an inconvenient truth and a side effect of, like I said, Turkey putting pen to paper and continuing to move the needle in boxing, right?
Ignore as I was told as a kid, ignore the bully in the room, right? Just keep playing with your friends, ignore the bully in the room. The more y'all that ignore them, eventually the bully will want to come play, right? 100%. So we're starting to see people move away, like you just said, from the big bad wolf, Mr. I'm not gonna say his name but you told Riley you're not mentioning that today, so let's keep it moving. But anyway, I'm just kidding. So let's move away from Gervonta for a second, and let's keep our guys going, because whether he's there or not, he's playing or not, he don't like hopscotch. Guess what? The rest of the people do. Let's play. They're going to play. Let them play. Eventually he'll come and he'll join the table. We're starting to see the moves. We're starting to see everybody be more satisfied and happy with the game, right? I'm laughing because we're hearing statements. Oh, well, I just mentioned Shakur's mad, and he owes Shakur when he needs to pay him because he already made a lucrative deal with Shakur. When Eddie clearly explained why it was not, it was a contractual agreement to fight somewhere else. Now, they want to move the fight. Obviously, we know Oscar wanted to move the fight. That's why the information was put out there, right? From Oscar and when Eddie explained it. What if they move the fight to England, right? Now, what if they maybe Turkey would have been like, okay, listen, that's cool. But to go across the pond, now we got to go across the Great Pond. We got to come over there and fight. Bro, that costs money to move all that stuff, to do this and pay these people and pay the networks. And okay, we'll do it, but you're going to have to take a pay cut. And that's on both sides. So, you know what I mean? People got to stop the narratives, bro. I'm saying painting is Bob Ross, and I keep telling you all that. So, you know what I mean? Even Bob Barrett's Ross. Like, all y'all got to stop painting these narratives and keep it real, because the guy's making moves for boxing. He's keeping it real for boxing. And this is no attacks to anybody, guys. I promise you, I just like talking about boxing. I like keeping my ears to the street so I can address certain things, but not to be rude. But Clay got it, man. Look, it is what it is. Let's keep it pushing, because he's good. This Turkey doing his thing, man.
Yeah, Top Breed says, I don't give a damn what nobody says. That man does not give a damn about African American fighters. What has he done other than overmatch them and not stand on his word? I don't know. You know what I mean? But this is what I'm saying, right? At the end of the day, there's a lot of animosity towards what Turkey's bringing to the table, right? And people make it, even with that term, what has he done for African American fighters? Shout out to us as Americans being here, right? But the world doesn't operate under this race thing as much as you guys might think it does, right? Maybe when it comes to somebody living in the neighborhood, or you know what I'm saying, maybe those might come up. But in the business of boxing, in the business of the best fighting the best, this isn't about the African American boxing agenda, right? What does Turki Alalshikh give a damn about an agenda based on some sort of racist or racism or acknowledge? No, this is not what this is about, right? This is about the best fighting the best. This is about providing opportunity to fighters who are slave to across the street politics, who can't get their just due, who can't get the big fights that they want to get, who can't challenge themselves, and ultimately, probably the most important thing, reshaping and restructuring the idea from a fan's point of view about what good boxing looks like in comparison to what great boxing looks like, right? This is what it's about. It's about, I want to see the best fight the best. I want to see competitive fight of the year candidate quality fights regularly as much as I can. And I think most of the fighters also want to challenge themselves at the highest levels possible. But this idea right here is very, and shout out to you, Top Breed, right? I don't know you respectfully, but this is a very casual take, right? It's a super casual take on a sport that is an international sport, that is a world sport. It's a sport where every country knows. It's one of the only sports that right now that you're watching that is judged on an international level, where you have an undisputed champion from Ukraine, where you have an undisputed champion from Russia, where you have a unified champion from America, right? Where you'll have a champion in England, where you'll have an undisputed champion in Japan. This is an international sport. And I just think like a lot of you guys have a hard time grasping that. Your vision is really limited and inside of a little tiny box. And I think it makes you uncomfortable to see the reality of the situation, which is boxing is way bigger than where you want to stick it in. It can't be contained inside this box, right? It can't be contained inside this box. It's just too much. It's too many fighters. Hence, what's going with this Grand Prix and, trying to bring out new stars worldwide to compete on this world stage. That's what's going to attract a Saudi Arabian prince, right, to go ahead and put his entertainment ambassador in Turki Alalshikh on an assignment to bring boxing to his country, because he recognizes the international quality and value that the sport brings. It brings the world together. Boxing brings the world together. So, the casual perspective of can't give a damn about African American fighters, what does that mean? And how does he not give a damn? Because he overmatches them. Well, man, talk about being disrespectful to a fighter, right? To even paint a picture or a narrative that a fighter is being overmatched. He's taking the challenge. He clearly thinks he can win. He's being paid very well for it. So in what world does what you just said right here give it respect an African American's fighter's pedigree and ability to compete at the highest level, right? It's just something, some perspective I have out there, man. The fights get made because the fighters agree to the fights being made. Nobody's being pulled against their will or a gun put against their head to go inside the ring with a werewolf, right? Or some sort of superhero villain. They're signing the contracts. They want to challenge themselves. And as a boxing fan, what could you possibly have against that? Fighters get into that, right? You want to protect. The boxing fans want to get into protecting fighters, right? Like I want, even though he wants to make the fight, we got to stop him from doing it because he can get like what angle are you hitting, and where does that benefit the fighter? Not only as far as his own ambitions of challenging himself, but also what solutions do you offer him to get the paydays that he wants to get and for him to be the prize fighter he wants to be? You'd rather him sit, stagnant and wait on a 1 or 2 fights a year against cherry picks and find some entertainment in that, rather than embrace the idea that this is a great thing happening for boxing, that them challenging themselves is what they came in the sport for. The prize fighting part, the box gets checked by Turki Alalshikh. What are you complaining about? I don't know.
Crazy work, right? I'm glad you touched on a few things that I wanted to mention, because when I hear stuff like this, Clay, it makes me think, who is not taking advantage of these fighters here? Let's ask that question first. You tell me here in the United States that's not taking advantage of these African American fighters, because they're all being taken American of. They're money to these guys, right? These guys are getting paid out for their value over by the Sheik, but yet here in the United States, they're not getting paid by their value. They're getting paid by their marketing, and it is a value, but it's marketing value. It's not their value. And what I mean by that, and to separate the two, is the boxer puts in the work. The boxer's built himself up. The boxer has put in the accolades and made himself a champion or a prize fighter to a degree. Oh man, listen, I ain't listening no more. Anyway, to a degree of
hold on a second, right?
Don't even entertain them.
Hold on a second. So this is a lie, right? Right? This is a lie, right? So people were complaining about David Morrell not being tested right here in Minnesota, in America. You guys play this game
with the BBC. Make sure you mention that.
BBC. You guys play this game, and let me tell you what it shows, right? It shows how desperate you are for the narrative to be there, right? You make a big deal out of somebody not being tested, which has happened before in boxing in different ways. People complain about this for years, decades. It's always happened. When it comes to certain things, certain fights being made, the WBC gets involved, the promoters get involved. It's a corruption in the sport that's always been here, right? You guys will complain about Turki Alalshikh screaming at one of his fighters that he's down on rounds, but you'll make arguments as to why Tank Davis taking a knee in a fight is the referee's discretion and it's not illegal. You pick and choose these arguments, and what does it show? It exposes that you're a slave to your conditioning. You're a slave to your colonizer's game plan, which is to make you bigoted and prejudiced and sometimes racist in the way you process information, right? So you get so caught up in the narrative, you grab on to every little thing you can. They're not even that thing in the right. But speaking from an arrogant space of, in America, there's this like straight line being followed, and the fighters are being protected and promoted, and the fighters are best interests are being held at the highest level. And you speak from here, you stand tall at this space, you look down on these things going on in the small, as you bat your fucking eyebrow down on things. And it's embarrassing because it just exposes how limited you are in your critical thinking, in the capacity you have for critical thinking. You're super limited because you're looking and you get triggered like that. You find something and you make it the narrative, right? So Tevin Farmer has an issue with testing, and it happened in Saudi Arabia, and now they're not even testing over there. They're not even testing over there, right? This thing happened. Now they don't even test in Saudi Arabia. They were Tevin Farmer then. Yeah. Come on, man. We got to do better, people. We really got to do better and stop doing that and exposing ourselves. If you have so much respect and you care about the perspective of and the respect given to the African-American community, well, don't embarrass the community by showing how limited the thinking of the community is and how triggered. Because let me tell you what it does and what it's been doing and what it's been doing and is going to continue to do when you do that. It makes your credibility and it makes your opinion not worthy of being acknowledged. So boxing moves on without you. They start to take the fights away from you. They start to bring them to Saudi Arabia. They start to bring them to England. They start to not be concerned with entertaining you because the ignorance is so deep and thick in the air that you don't even matter anymore, right? You lose your credibility. So work on the biased approach, the unbiased approach, right? Work on being a fan of the sport. Celebrate the sport for everything great the sport can give you, right? Pay for fights, go to fights, be fans of the fighters, be fans of boxing, do your job, and stop getting into conversations that is above your pay grade and making up false narratives and make those arguments, because it's just exposing something that doesn't look good for this community when it comes to our credibility in the boxing space, right? It just is what it is. It is.
Yeah. Well, before I continue what I was saying, let me just address something real quick. So I'm definitely going to let you guys know where you stand. Okay. Yeah, I hope y'all see loud and clear. This is what you call a narrative. This is who picks the narratives. Mr. Bob Ross, salute to you, sir. A lot of guys pretending to be you. A lot of guys out here trying to paint Picassos on these boards, and they're on PBS talking real slick, and they think they're you, bro. They don't know how to paint the picture well. So thank you, Mr. Bob Ross, for being allowed to use your name very, very frequently, man. But at the end of the day, let's get back to the regular topic.
Yeah, he's lost. He's lost.
I ain't lose nothing. They lost it.
No, not you. I'm saying he's lost. I'm saying he's lost.
Yeah, I know. I know you mean. But anyway, back to the regular topic again. Just to address like I said, the African American thing real quick and just get it off my chest, because I wanted to finish that, is that we need to stop thinking that these guys here in the United States are not taking advantage of these guys. You hear them every day. Everybody that fought for Bob Arum, or everybody that's sitting stagnant and holding on to their britches, waiting for a fight, fighting to get in line to get on the PBC card, going over to Pro Box, fighting on MVP, fighting on Turkish cards. Why are they doing that if there's so many? Woohoo! They're not even signed to Turkey, and he ain't letting them fight. Or he's stealing the fighters because they see something there. You're too busy rubbing elbows with them YouTube holes. I'm gonna keep it real, and kissing the ground that they walk on, because they're out there making up narratives. And we're going to talk professional today, and we're going to make sure that you guys get it, because them guys out there are just lying, and they're all paid. They're paid. Get out of here with that nonsense, bro. Go get paid by that guy that's making up the lies. You know what I mean? Apparently, me and Clay were friends and people. We don't care about that. I ain't never been nobody friend other than Clay and Flyer Frequency on these platforms. So a lot of, you know what I mean, I respect a lot of people, and people I've met, I became friends with, but y'all got to get y'all rabbit ass ears outside of these weird content creators. As my boy would say, the chitlin the chitlin bag, whatever you want to call it. Get your head out that bag, bro. You know what I mean? Just stay from the chitlin circus, my bad, and just stay focused on what's important, which is boxing. Who cares where they're getting their money from? Who cares who's putting on the fights? As long as we're getting the fights we want to see. You don't see the guys that are retired talking bad about Turkey. You don't see the guys that really concentrate on boxing outside the sport, or analysts talking bad about Turkey. You don't see the other promoters talking bad about Turkey. All you hear is these weird-ass content creators that their favorite fighters are not assigned to, or not aligned with, talking crap. That's it. You know what? Salute. Goodbye. Kick bricks. I'm done.
It is what it is. Yeah. So we'll see what happens, right? I guess top breed. You know what I'll do, man? I'll keep my eyes open and I'll look out for this play, right?
Watch Chuck play.
No, it is what it is, man. I can respect it, right? It is what it is.
Hold on.
I'm gonna continue to move the fans. Right. I want to move the needle a little bit, and I want to head into we got a fight happening this weekend. with Charles Conwell. But I put what about Charles Conwell, because 154 is moving, right? 154 is definitely moving. It's a hornet's nest, but this fighter right here seems to be he seems to be on the outside of a conversation he should be on the inside of, if that makes any sense, right? Like you talk about Virgil, you talk about Xander, you talk about Sebastian, they talk about Boots Ennis, even who's at 147 going up to 154 at some point. They talk about, Bakram. They talk about these fighters, but what they don't bring up is this guy Charles Conwell, right? And Charles Conwell has a fight this weekend. He'll be on the Gabriella Union undercard. I don't remember who he's fighting. Do you know who he's fighting this weekend? And I think that's a problem, right? I think the fact that we don't know who he's fighting this weekend is an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is somebody who is right there in the same conversation of Xander Zayas, maybe even more should be in front of Xander Zayas, being that he has the experience, right, that he's bringing to the table. But this weekend he's fighting against, let's see who he's fighting against. He is fighting against George Garcia Perez. This guy's 32-4, 26 knockouts. It's going to be a good fight, right? It's going to be a good fight. But at the end of this fight, what's next for Charles Conwell? What's the next move that makes the most sense for Charles Conwell at this point? Because at this point, he's either going to start to fight down, or like, what's the next move for Charles Conwell? Have you been watching his movement? Because I'm going to try to keep him here in the front, because he's in the back for sure, and I don't think he belongs there.
Let me tell you what happens. Now, you guys want to talk about a promoter or a person in boxing that likes to keep their Black American fighters back behind bars? Talk about Oscar De La Hoya, because he only allows them to go but so far. And once he gets them there, he kind of keeps them stagnant. That's why a lot of them move. And when they move for that reason. So let's keep it a buck with Charles Conwell. Charles Conwell has been known to be that guy. He's known to be someone that's able to make these moves and make things happen right. And when I say that is he's making he's winning his fights. He's showing who he is. He's getting on these cards. And it is time for him to step up in competition. It is time for him to do certain things and create a better name for himself, get into some lucrative fights. Do I see him fighting anybody young in his age group as of now? What I mean by that, I mean like boxing age. I mean like his years in the game, like him fighting Xander Zayas. No, because I think that's a tough fight later to be made. You know what I mean? Sometimes the promoters move right, but should he be fighting the Erickson Lubins? Yes, a veteran in the game? Absolutely. Should he be, you know what I mean? Should he be fighting a Josh Kelly? Absolutely. Should he be fighting a Caleb Walsh? Absolutely. Why should he be fighting these guys, Clay? Because those are names in the divisions that help him move forward in the division and get him bigger fights, rather it be with the champions or rather it will be with a later Xander Zayas or Sergey Bohacek or Amandromov. Right? These are the things you want to do to put him in position for those fights, because the next step is gold. And if you're going to do that, you want to take the training wheels off, which I don't think they really want to do with him, and get him out of these fights that are no longer stationary and put him in gear. Get his wheels turning. Let's push him in the right direction, because if not, you're going to do exactly what Clay said. You're going to put flat tires on him, and he's going to be rolling downhill, and you're going to be trying to put bricks to stop him from rolling backwards. And like I said, we already see that happening. So, yes, to your point, man, they need to move this guy forward. They need to find him some lucrative fights, and definitely some like minus A-level fighters, some B-level fighters, to get him in the ring with and start making him climb the hill, Clay, because he's right there.
Yeah, he is right there. He's ranked pretty high in the WBO and the WBC rankings. This fight right here, I'm assuming is going to push him up even further in these rankings. In front of him in the W, it looks, personally, just watching it, it just looks like the WBC is the route for him. The WBO, he's sitting there at number 2, but there's a lot of, Xander Zayas and Sebastian Fundora is supposed to be coordinating their fight, putting that together, unless he wants to sit back and wait for the result there. Mm-hmm. And Terrence Crawford, they still got Terrence Crawford holding the interim title there. I don't think he does, though. I'll be honest with you. I feel like
they took it from him.
Yeah, they took it from him, right? So it's either that or or Jesus Ramos. You know what I mean? Who's right up there in the WBC rankings. Jesus Ramos seems like a fight that can legitimately put together. well, I don't know, because Jesus is over there at the PBC, right?
Right.
Jesus Ramos. So that's at across the street politics, and he's at a number 3 spot. Is the PBC going to risk Jesus Ramos losing his standings before he can actually get a title fight, fighting a Serhii Bachuk or Xander Zayas as well, for Charles Conwell, who I think that would be a great fight, Jesus Ramos versus Charles Conwell, right?
Yeah,
that'd be a really good fight. But I don't know, man. Just wanted to keep it out there, man. Salute to Drew Titan in the building. Salute to Boxing Guru, says, I agree. LOL, Turkey bashing is only from the con. Yeah, it really is, man. Salute Bruce Gas Boxing in the building as well, man. Salute to you. But yeah, man, it is what it is. So let's go ahead and talk about some current events, things that's happening right now. So Bill Haney does an interview with Najee from Cigar Talk. Great interview, by the way. Najee's a great interviewer, man. He does a real good job at these interviews. And he talked about a lot of things, right? I watched it early this morning. I watched the interview, and just put in some good context. You know, when Bill Haney's in front of the right creator, he can be very he can give thought-provoking context, you know what I'm saying, to a lot of the moves he's made, and give you some perspective on how to see Devin Haney moving forward, right? He can really do that. When he's in front of the wrong creators, he can get very much caught into the antics and to the he'll play to the crowd, I want to say, right? He'll play to the crowd that he's in. He'll entertain who it is, but in front of the right in the right setting, he can be very, you know what I'm saying, he can be very cool. Right. You know what I mean? And he spoke on a few things, but I think the main thing I grabbed from that situation was the vision, right? That this started from somewhere deeper than what most people want to wrap their mind around, and some opinions or hate or whatever you want to call from a boxing space isn't going to derail this, because this is something deeper, you know what I'm saying, than just what you guys see, right? The work that was done, the love that he has for his children in real time, the sacrifices he made for Devin Haney to change his life, you know what I'm saying? Even speaking on his introduction to taking his shahada, when he was very honest about doing it in prison, because that was a thing to do, and he wasn't genuine with it, and Allah knew what was on his heart, and he got reintroduced to it in a real way, and he gives all the glory in that direction. But also speaking to Devin Haney's mind state, and speaking to Devin Haney's commitment and mental health in the sport, right? Saying that basically Devin is in a great space, which I'm like, we'll find out that night. But did you get a chance to see?
Yeah. I thought it was a good interview. I thought he definitely didn't dodge anything. He was definitely up front with a lot of things he brought on his own. He definitely explained where he's been going and why he separated the business from the sport and the fighter. He explained certain things. So at the end of the day, Bill has been very, very vocal, and he's saying why he doesn't really use his opinions to describe things. He just tells you the truth, and whether you like it or not, deal with it pretty much. I mean, he's letting you know that.
Right. It was a decent little interview, man. He spoke on it. Devin Haney continues to get attention in the space right now. As Devin Haney's, I guess, I don't know if they're renegotiating or if it's a rumor or if it's true, as far as him wanting to move up to 147 pounds and move the fight up to restructure the contract to make it at 147 rather than do the catch weight at 144. Did you hear about that?
Yep.
What do you think about that?
I think that's a great move, because I mean, it just solidifies his foot in the door, right? It says that he's willing to take on the bigger and best challenges, and by him being able to facilitate that puts him in danger,
right?
You know what I mean? With his fellow boxers. So
I'm hearing that Devin kind of like debunked that, though, and said that wasn't true, that he wasn't trying to do that. You know what I mean? But I mean, it came from Robert Garcia, but where did I don't know. Like, where did Devin say that? Where did Devin say it's not true?
I want to, I would like to see, because as far as I know, he's number 2 right now in the WBC. I'm sorry, number 1 in the WBC.
Oh, I'm looking at it right here. Here it is, right here. It's right here.
What do you say?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up right now. Hold on. I heard about this. I didn't go look it up until right now. I'm looking it up right now. I'm looking it up right now. Hold on a second. That didn't work out the way I thought it would. That didn't work out the way I thought it would. There we go. So Devin Haney responds to Boxing Kingdom, putting Robert Garcia stated that Devin Haney's requesting a change in the contract weight for his fight against Jose Ramirez on May 2nd. Team Haney are requesting the weight to be changed from 144 to 147. Devin responds yesterday and says, "This is false. 144 is the weight. I eat burgers and steak every day. I'm not dieting to make weight." So this may be one of those situations where maybe his team is speaking on his behalf and trying to negotiate it, because I mean, you're eating burgers and steak every day.
I think what there's, in my opinion, maybe who's behind the fight? Turkey, right?
I mean, yeah, it's a ring magazine fight. It's a
right. So maybe it's Turkey trying to get a sanction at a 147 weight, even though they're fighting at 144, even though it was a catchweight fight. They're pretty much welterweights anyway, being over 143. 143 and above, rather. So maybe he's just like, look, just make it a full welterweight fight. Forget the catchweight fight. Both you guys come in, whatever, and you fight at 147. Yeah, the fight probably still structured at 144, right? That's on him. I don't know. I'm not the. I just thought it was a good move either way, because he's ranked at 147 already. He's ranked number 1 at WBC. So why wouldn't you sit there and go what do you call it, balls to the wall on a division right now and just run for it wides on fire? You know what I mean? But I get it. Maybe he wants to go up there slowly. But Bill did touch on something too, actually, that makes me think, because he said Devin's fighting this fight at 144 and he can still make fights at 140 if he needs to. So basically he's probably playing that middle gate role like Floyd did, where Floyd was able to bounce back and forth between divisions. And stay healthy. So it's possible he could be doing that too, Clay. We don't know.
But if he's doing that, what does that mean he's doing that as far as staying at 144 instead of fighting at 147?
I mean, Floyd was like 145, right? When he was fighting between weights constantly, right? He was kind of measuring it.
What I'm saying is, well, first of all, Devin's responded, right? We're not going to disregard the fact that he's responded. He said it's false. That's what he said, right? So as far as he's concerned, 144 is the weight, and he's not only, more importantly, he hasn't requested no changes, is what he's saying. So the question is, if it's not him, then somebody around him, maybe somebody who has the power to represent his best interest, is speaking on his behalf.
Possibly Turkey. Turkey's probably made the request through the sanctions to try to put them in place. I told you, I think Barrio's a jumping ship, bro, and that belt's going to be up for grabs, and they're probably negotiating that into probably a title fight or some type of interim belt eliminator.
That might be it too. That's a good perspective right there. Maybe
it might be Turkey probably getting some, or maybe Mauricio Suleiman. It could be someone somewhere that has something to deal with this fight that can make this happen. But again,
if they can bring the WBC into conversation, I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of parts. There's a lot of moving parts right here, bro. You get Devin Haney and Jose Ramirez a fight for an interim WBC title, instead of just fighting a catchweight fight just to fight. First of all, Mauricio gets his cut, right? He gets his sanction fee out of it. And then now you kind of position Devin Haney to either fight Mario Barrios or maybe even be elevated to a full WBC champion if Mario Barrios does in fact leave the division to go to fight at 154, and puts Devin Haney right into the conversation of unification fights, big, huge fight, big money fights with Bouts Ennis that can maybe convince Bouts to stay at 147 even more, with Brian Norman. I mean, yeah, and not to mention Ryan Garcia and Rolly Romero, they're also fighting for an interim WBA title, right? That's what they're fighting for a regular WBA title. So, yeah, bro, look, man, Devin may be not looking to make the move. He may not be. I think the narrative being painted here, the picture being painted, is that Devin Haney's having some kind of, like, this represents some sort of second thought or lack of confidence or lack of, you know what I mean? Like, anytime a fighter wants to make some changes, people like to affiliate it with, oh, something's going wrong in the camp, something's going wrong with the, you know what I mean, with the whole situation.
Only certain fighters, only certain people.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, when you don't like a fighter, when people don't like a fighter, you know, as soon as they find some fuel, they try to add a match to it and get a fire going, right?
Exactly.
So So, but in the reality is that for the business of boxing, it may make more sense for the business of boxing itself, outside of Devin Haney's request one way or another, to actually go ahead and move him forward, put him in that welterweight division. He's getting ready. His next fight's going to be at 147 regardless, against Ryan Garcia, assuming Ryan Garcia beats Rolly Romero. So that makes sense. But like you said, I like the fact that you brought up Mauricio Suleiman, and you brought up Turki as well, who may be feeling like, and by the way, I'm starting to feel like Mauricio Suleiman and Turki are right on the same page with each other, bro. I don't think I'm believing more and more there's no energy like people are painting. And I'm even willing to entertain a little bit that this whole entire Dimitri Bivol, David Benavidez situation is kind of I can see Turki being involved in that a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I can see Turki operating on the fact of maybe even trying to push Dimitri Bivol into an undisputed championship with David Benavidez and allowing that title to go over there temporarily while he fights Better BF. I could see chess being played there in a way that I'll just keep my eye on it, right? But I'm just going to say that I've been thinking about it lately and feeling like, you know what? This on the back end of Bivol winning this fight, or even Better BF, we could watch David Benavidez still fight for undisputed. Turki might be right on board with what Mauricio Suleiman is doing and allowing some things to move in the spirit of the bigger picture. We don't know, right?
Thank you for coming around on that, Clay, because I think I did say that. I believe I said that when we first started talking about that. I was like, I think it might be a move to make this fight happen anyway, right? Let's get him out the way. If we don't want the belt, we'll go fight, and there will just be a 2-time undisputed champion, or somebody be a first-time undisputed champion at the division. This is going to be a fight later down the line. They just didn't like that purse bid situation, which was like, okay, well, you wanted to go to purse bid. Listen, man, we ain't trying to make that fight right now. Let's take your time. Let's make it happen. And I think that's what happened. So now it's going to be, the circles are going to round up, because once it went to purse bid, we knew where the fight was going. We knew where it was going to go. I mean, Turki could have bought it, but I think it would have ended up with the PBC, and that would have been a fight that would, hey, I got to. It's okay. We're good. Devin want to get in my way. I was about to push him.
There's a lot of reasons why that could be happening, but he's getting the attention. Devin Haney's embraced the villain role at this point. He's already owned and taken it and made it his own, and understands that you can't change the minds of fans. He's on the opposite side of a conversation with a fan favorite in Tank Davis, and he's never going to live that down. They don't like the way Bill Haney talks, so it is what it is. But at the end of the day, he's in the mouths of a lot of boxing fans in the boxing space right now, and that's a good thing, right? All publicity in these kind of scenarios is good publicity. But I think it's also good to hear that Devin's getting strong, that he's showing. If they're thinking about pushing him in that direction, then there's got to be some decent reason behind it, right? Some reasoning behind it. Be like, man, this kid could just do 147, man. He's eating steaks and burgers, and he's filling out, and we might see a whole nother version of Devin Haney on May 1st, right? May 1st, right? On May 2nd.
Second.
First or second?
Second. May 2nd.
Right. May 2nd. So I don't know, man. That's a good thing for him, right? It is what it is, right? It is what it is. Let me ask you a question.
Where's this fight supposed to be at again? Times Square? In Times Square, right?
Right. Hold on one second. Bear with me. Hold it down for a
second. Yeah, no problem. All right, no problem. Shout out to Nick J for coming to the building. Matt Majestics, welcome. Real Prison Talk with Tommy. Welcome to the Palace, because that's where we at right now. Joseph Jackson, welcome to the Palace. Yeah, Nick J, it could be Garcia. I did see that comment earlier that he could be spreading false information. We've seen people do that before, so I get it. Back to Clay and Ray.
Right. Yeah, it could be a bunch of things, right? I didn't have my computer plugged in, man. That thing was about to power down. I was like, damn, bro, what?
That was fast, but I ain't never seen you run so fast in my life. You left the camera.
I looked, it said bling. I'm like, what's going on?
You left the camera on right. You see me dip off.
Oh, you did?
No, it's my switching.
Nah, I was like, yo, let me get at that, because I rewired a bunch of things, hooked up a bunch of stuff over here, and I was like, damn, did I F that up? Anyway, that being said, that that could definitely be on the table. But another piece of information that's coming out and that I took from that interview was this right here, right? So Shane Mosley has been added to the fold with Team Haney right now. So he's actually helping to train Devin Haney. I don't know if if they want to look at like he's training, or Shane Mosley has always been a great addition to camps, being that he's always been able to mimic. He's remember when that used to be the thing with him, like they would bring him into camp because he was always good at mimicking fighters, right? Fighting like other fighters, like he sees how they fight, and he's able to give them real good sparring and real good perspective as to what to expect from the fighters. How do you feel? How do you feel about? Did you hear about this first of all, about the Shane Mosley edition?
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, that's why they're over here in Big Bear. Absolutely,
exactly. How do you feel about that?
I like it. First of all, fighting at high altitude is a good thing. Never's been a bad thing. It helps.
Well, I'm talking about Shane Mosley's edition, right?
Okay, yeah. No, I think that's good. I think having another opinion of a guy that's been traveling throughout the weeks and how do you adjust to the weight classes and things like that come into question. Shane Mosley is definitely one of those guys that has done it. Shane Mosley has kept his power moving up. Shane Mosley has been able to I don't know why I can't say his name right. It's like I'm tongue-tied. But Shane Mosley has been definitely a great asset to this lineup of Devin and them, because of the fact that he's fought in bigger fighters, which Devin is about to move into a whole realm of when he was a 135, 140 pound champion, moving into 147, later 154, and fighting bigger fighters this whole time. So this is a good touch on things, and I think he's going to be capable of helping the team out and giving them some good intellect before the fight coming up. I think he'll give some good teachings.
Yeah, I like the addition of Shane. I'm interested in seeing what that turns into. What I like the most about the addition of Shane Mosley is that I'm realizing and seeing, and it's one thing I've always celebrated Bill Haney for is once again, the willingness for him to sacrifice, put himself in the back for the sake of putting his son to the front, right? This is an important addition, in my opinion, and it's showing the extent he's willing to go to see Devin be the best version of himself, right? So he'll sit out here, do these interviews, he'll support Devin, he'll take the rocks, he'll take all the persecution, all the hatred off the strength of taking it off of Devin, right? But he'll also bring into the camp whatever he needs to bring in. And that's what I want to see, because you don't bring Shane Mosley in for any other reason but adjustments, right? You bring him in because you want some things to be adjusted. You're adding something new because you want to bring something that wasn't there before. And I think Devin is in need of that, man. I think he's in need of that type of change, right? In his camp. Nothing extreme, but at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, still worthwhile, right? In the big picture, it is what it is. So let's continue to move the needle. Bozy Ennis does a little interview with YSM. Shout out to Jamel over there at YSM. Did a great interview with Bozy Ennis, and Bozy spoke more than he normally does, to be honest with you. He normally doesn't speak as much as he did in this interview, but he dropped a lot of information and just kept it 100, right? And the thing that I walked away with that he said, more importantly, and I quote, he says, "We're not waiting around on these guys." I thought that was significant. For him to say that was a significant thing, because here we are listening and thinking that unifying the division in the next logical step for Boots Ennis is to go fight a Brian Norman Jr. or go try to fight a fight with Mario Barrios, but acknowledging how difficult these guys have made it for these fights to come full circle in the past. They're looking at, and Bozy also said that, Boots is undisputed as far as he's concerned. He's the only unified champion in the division, and he's the lineal Ring Magazine champion. Boots was talking about staying at 147 to become undisputed and to unify. Has Boots done that? Do you think he's checked the box for himself already? Does he have anything left to prove at 147? So, is he ready to move on?
We're gonna definitely talk about this, because remember, Clay, when I told you it went from undisputed in conversation. This is about what, almost a year ago. It went from undisputed in conversation to unified at 147. Boots has to win a title. The man feels like he needs to. He doesn't want to be given a title. He wants to win a title at 147. If the fights are there to unify, they'll take it. Eddie then backed that up when I was mentioning that also later, I think like a month or two later. So yes, why wait around? Why hurt yourself? Why do certain things if you don't have to? But if the opportunity is there, take the fights. I'm never against it when the fighter's taking the fights. What I am against is the fighters looking like scarecrows and skeletons on stage. We've seen that with Jaleel Hackett. Jaleel Hackett is promptly saying he's moving up to the next division because we see these things being hampering to them. So if Boots says he can make weight, I mean, all fighters say they can make weight, right? It's just something that they say. But at what cost? If Boots says he can do it, you know what I mean, 1 or 2 more fights, then let him do it. But do we want to see the Earl Spence experience again? That's the question. We don't want to see that.
One fight too much, right?
Right. So we want to see them move in the right direction. So if he can move, if he's done and satisfied his hunger for the division, maybe he should move up and go to 140 or 154. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And it only makes him, you know what I mean, it only gives him more accolades. Because right now he's in a spot, right? So he goes up there and clean shot. He goes up there and wins 2 titles. Now he's a 2-division unified champion. You know what I mean? So things can always look good on a brighter horizon for your career. And you don't, he says it's about the accolades, not the paydays. So, I mean, he just wants to fight. He's a fighter. So he wants to fight. So let's make the fights happen, man.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Boots and Bozy on this one, man. Listen, dog. And I love how you said it. Like I said, we're not waiting around these guys, man. These guys are leveraging Boots's hunger to want to be undisputed, and they're trying to make these paydays ridiculous. They're trying to put somebody like Eddie Hearns under the, you know what I'm saying, under the damn canvas, because, you know, the money generated on these fights, like I said yesterday, the question's always going to be there when these guys are asking for these huge paydays and these aren't pay-per-view fights. Are they worth, you know what I mean, the paper that it's written on? What accolade is worth breaking the bank to the point to where you're allowing, not only are you breaking the bank, but you're also pushing out you're building a bad reputation for yourself, like, right, like you guys are willing to pay these absurd amounts of money. What's the next fighter going to do? It's like you're setting precedents. It's like giving in to terrorism, right? It's like we got to set a precedence here. We can't allow this narrative to be out there that you guys are becoming millionaires off of a television fight. And especially fighters like, shout out to Brian Norman Sr. But, you know, your fighter, you know, coming from making 6 figures, you know, now making, you know, maybe $300,000+ in your last fight. But before that, the fight was like close to 150. At least is what the rumor is in the boxing streets, right? To, you know, pass off on an opportunity to unify and be in a big fight and let $200,000, $300,000 stop you from doing that when, you know, 1.5, 1.7 million's on the table, you know, to allow negotiations to move built off that. And that's why I always said is yesterday's price, today's price. If that's what we're looking forward to, if Eddie Hearn is looking forward to negotiate that way, if Boots Ennis and Bozy Ennis is that what they're looking forward to be stuck at the table, entertaining obscene amount of money where they can't see recouping it in any kind of way from Eddie Hearn's perspective, then what are we weighing out here? If the fight becomes unrealistic in that way, he's already unified. He's a Ring Magazine lineal champion in that division. He has enough to leverage himself at 154 in a way to where he can get in even bigger fights and have more accolades and more legacy. So in turn, if these fighters don't want to come to the table and work inside of some realistic parameters that allow this fight to not only happen but be profitable, then yeah, why hang out at 147? Why not keep it moving and go on to your next biggest opportunity and jump right into what everybody's wanted to see you do anyway? We've been wanting to see you at 154. The fans want to see you. You built it. The way you dominated Stanionis, you've got a momentum right now that I think you should be concerned with capitalizing off of, rather than proving something against a fighter who, in once again respectfully, but a fighter who a year ago was an underdog, you know what I'm saying, on a fight card and became an interim champion off of that fight that was which shocked the world, right? Which disrupted Vegas, right? The odds were not in your favor. You were not favored to win that fight. to sit there and take a fighter like that and have him hold you hostage and extort you out of money you're not ready to pay out on. Right. So look, man, we'll see how that turns out. Right. But I think what it clearly says is Boots is more than willing and ready to move on if the BS becomes BS again. If he has to revisit what happened, 6 months or so back, 6 months ago, however long ago that was, I think he passes on it. I think he walks away from it and says, I don't have nothing to prove to you, bro. I don't got nothing to prove to the world. The world already considers me that guy. I'm unified. I'm a Ring Magazine lineal champion. You know what I'm saying? You're a champion who got elevated to being a champion. Nobody's going to look at Boots and say he ducked Brian Norman if he chooses not to go to the table and negotiate millions of dollars for a fight. You know what I'm saying? Right. Nobody's going to say that. And whatever people do have that question about it are going to be far and in between. He'll handle that in his first fight at 154.
I agree.
Right? Nobody's going to see him beat Virgil Ortiz or beat one of those fighters and be like, yeah, but you're going to do that with Brian. Nobody's sitting there doing that.
And to your point, even with Brian Norman, I don't know if you've seen his last interview. You probably didn't. But if you did, even with his last interview, Brian Norman made a few truths be heard, saying that, he couldn't have took the fight anyway. Junior's hands was messed up. And he's spoken a lot of things. And I'm not putting words in his mouth. I'm definitely doing some improv in here. But he was just basically saying that, he already had a fight lined up. They were negotiating the fight because the fight could have happened, but it wasn't looking like it was going to happen either way. So this is no shade or any me. Oh, okay.
No, this guy saying talking about an IBO championship.
No way. Yeah. So this is no shade or things thrown at Mr. Brian Norman. Because I think that they would have fought. I think that's just opportunity, but let the kid enjoy his belt, right? Why wouldn't you let the kid enjoy his belt? He wants a defense of it. You know what I mean? It only brings him up. But if you're going to try to take that opportunity away from him, rightfully so, you're going to have to pay the cost to be the boss, which I understand everything Brian Norman was saying in that statement. But now we're at the point where Boots does control some of the table. Does the price stay the same? Does the price go up? I actually was watching the Queens the other night. And they made some good points about, does the money go up from here? You're paying other people a little bit differently, and I get it. So let's see what happens. Let's see how it all comes to into fruition, and maybe so. Maybe they did pay Standing Honest a little bit better off than what he needed to do to get that fight and do the deal. Also, Standing Honest has been taking a lot of, just like Boots, been taking a lot of step aside money and things of that nature, Clay, to not get a title shot, just like Boots was. So maybe out of respect to Standing Honest, like, look, we've been in your shoes, we understand, we're unified, let's break bread together. And I think rightfully so to the other side of the street, just to say, if that's the case for Brian Norman, let's break bread together. So I get it. It's just now that bread may be a little different. And I understand. I'm not hating or, pushing either way. I just think that at the end of the day, we just need to understand that this is boxing and there's also politics and business in boxing, which we don't have privy to. So once all those things come to light, we'll get some answers and we'll see how things are going to move. In this case, if the fight's not there to be made and it's going to be pricing itself out of what it is, then yeah, we'll take our chances. We'll move up and get some bigger and better fights. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, there were arguments there about, at one point in time, I know Brian Norman, Sr. spoke on, this is the only fight that Boots should be concerned about making, and if he doesn't, he's a bitch. And think words like that he used, and to me, I question as to who's this fight really important for? Is it important for Boots' legacy, or at this point is it important for Brian Norman Jr.'s legacy? And why wasn't it this important when the opportunity was on the table? Why was the money more important at that time than that? And clearly I think we can see why when you look at the fact that there's conversations about his hands were injured around that time. There was conversations of fights being negotiated already with Derek Cuevas. I spoke to Senior on Mill City, and he said that fight wasn't yet finalized when he first started negotiating with Boots Ennis, but I don't know. That's not what I was hearing. I was hearing that Derek Cuevas was pretty much already aligned, and they were supposed to make that fight happen actually earlier than it did. It was the hand injury that actually postponed the fight. Now, they put the onus on Boots to say that also Boots' mandatory was something that he couldn't get around. Rachel Donaire spoke on it, basically saying that the fight couldn't have been done because of this mandatory, which I have issues with, because I'm just, having the understanding that unifications would trump mandatories, but coming to understand through L-Dub and other people who've educated me to say that that's not necessarily the case, right? That from time to time these mandatories can hold the weight, and they're not trumped by the unification. So that's confusing within itself. But I think the business of boxing overtakes everything, right? It's like, it's not even personal at this point. The reality is that we don't have to fight each other, because I'm a unified champion, you're a champion, so there's no mandatory that I need to hold back. There's a whole bunch of opportunities in front of me. I literally had to hire a nutritionist for this last fight to make sure that I can make this weight right. You know what I'm saying? I've got no problem fighting you, but without a doubt, I don't need to fight you. The opportunities are endless out there for me. And if we are going to fight, then we need to put this conversation back into the context of what it is, which is, I am the A side. I hold the privilege. I control the pieces, and you will humble yourself when negotiating with me and be willing to compromise and concede to palatable terms and conditions that get you some money, but it don't got to get you all the money. But you need to put this fight in the crosshairs of your priorities over the money. And if you're going to make the money the end all be all, then walking away is a legitimate option for me. And I'll take that. I will walk away. You know what I'm saying? And I'll walk away with my legacy intact, with my accolades intact, and with plenty of opportunities in front of me. And you will have ultimately missed out on the opportunity, not me. Right? This is what it ultimately will be.
Yes, and just to clarify, I think what Rachel said is, once it entered the purse bid, at that point, there's no coming back from that. At one point, it was able to be made, but once they got to that point of the purse bid and was already bid upon, there's no retracting. Also, to mention what you said, Clay, was the about the fight was it was big. I mean, it was something that could have been made. I remember saying on the channel that this is going to be, even if the fight's not made, it only makes it bigger for a later date, right? Because now it builds the fight up more. Now everybody wants to see this fight because of the way it was built up and pushed. So now the money is really there for both the promoters to make this fight happen, or Turki, Eddie, even Bob, whatever side of the street you're on, to make this fight happen and get the paydays for both these fighters. Because now this fight has been built up to a status of, we want to watch, like, what is it? Must watch TV. There you go. And this is what it became. So I like the fact that this happened, regardless of how it turned out and where we got. We're still back to the same point of the road, right? We just went around, those circles you got that they drive you around to get to the other side. We're now at the other end of that circle. So we started at this point, we went our separate ways, and now we're back at the same junction at the road where we can continue to negotiate where we left off. So now this is bigger and better. The fans want to see it now. The challenge is there. If they want it to be, if it's not, it's not. I'm moving forward with it. I'm not holding nobody accountable. It is what it is. It's boxing, and things change, right? Things are subjective to change, because people like to play. They like to play on that right now, which is cool. I'll play with it too. Pause. But things are subjected to change. Some people want to move different ways. You know what I mean? Avenues change, roads change. So whatever it is, paths change. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it funky, and let's just let us know that absolutely, man, this is boxing, and you know what I mean. Sometimes you wear out your welcome. In other words,
right? So Dragonfly Jones says the problem with Boots is its time is not on his side. If Boots wants undisputed, he needs Norman sooner than later. Well, Dragonfly, I think that's interesting, right? And I agree with you 100%. But here's the curveball. Does he feel undisputed already? Like I said to you guys, Bozy said that Boots is pretty much undisputed already. They putting a lot of weight not only on the unification, but I think more importantly, they're putting a lot of weight on that lineal championship that they have with Ring Magazine. And basically, if that box is already checked, if undisputed is not as important to him as it once was in comparison, what we're talking about right now is he's weighing out opportunities, right? He's weighing out opportunities, and the opportunities in front of him are endless at 154. And he has a sponsor in Turki Alalshikh that is salivating at the mouth to get this guy at 154 to put him in these great fights. He legitimately is, right? Like, he wants the Virgil Ortiz fights. He wants to see him with Charles Conwell. He wants to see him with Xander. He wants to see him with Sebastian Fundora. He wants to see him fight against Jermell Charlo. He wants to see him with Terrence Crawford, right? We heard Eddie Hearn speak on this, right? We heard him speak on a fight with Terrence Crawford. So this is where they really want him, and Eddie wants him there, right? Because Eddie Hearn wants him there. I heard somebody say, I think it was Showbiz, who may have said that he thinks that Eddie Hearn is really the driving force behind pushing Boots to be unified and undisputed at 147. I disagree, Showbiz. I disagree, because Boots has always been the one who's been trying to be unified and become an undisputed champion at 147. I remember a few months behind that people were mad at Eddie Hearn, saying that Eddie Hearn was purposely sabotaging the Brian Norman Jr. fight from happening just to push him to 154, right? To go ahead and fight Virgil Ortiz, a fight that Turki Alalshikh thought was already put together. I think it's a good argument to say that Eddie Hearn was the vehicle that had Turki Alalshikh so confident that the 154 fight was going to happen, when it was actually Boots Ennis who put his foot down and said, I didn't agree to nothing. What I want to do is this. He wanted to stay at 147. So now if the box is being checked for him and he considers himself an undisputed champion now, right? If he considers himself that, if the Ring Magazine lineal championship is enough for him and satiates his appetite to become undisputed at 147, then what you're saying, Dragonfly Jones, it's on the opposite side, right? That if he what if he doesn't want undisputed anymore? What if the opportunities at 154 are more attractive to Boots today than it was before the Stanionis fight, right? If the opportunities at 154 are more attractive than they were before the Stanionis fight, well, this takes a lot of leverage and negotiation power away from the Normans when it comes to negotiating this fight. It takes away a lot of the negotiating power from Mario Barrios, or even fighting a Teofimo Lopez, who seems to be hesitant himself right now about what he's going to do when he goes up to 147. He seems to be way more hyper-focused on Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney results than the fight that Turki Alalshikh put out there that he wanted to put him in, which is the one supposedly Teofimo was asking for, which was Boots Ennis, and he won't even say the man's name anymore. So what's really sitting there at 147 for Jerron Boots Ennis right now? If the undisputed is not in the crosshairs, if it's not important anymore, if the Ring Magazine Lineal Championship checks the boxes for him, then ultimately, what is he hanging out at 147 for? I'm sure he's more than willing to unify and become undisputed, but I don't think he's willing to struggle to do it. Right. He's not at the negotiation table, at least.
And one more thing I do want to touch on this before we move forward, Clay, is we always tell you, whoever fights last fights best. And if you remember, 2 weeks ago, Brian Norman was the guy to beat at 147, and he looked sharp. And he, you even heard Senior talk about, yeah, man, bring him on, this and that. And then as we move away from that, and we see the Boots fight, now Boots is that guy. Now Boots is the guy that people are saying they want to see fight, and they want this or want that. So it always changes with the flow of the moment, Clay. These fighters that we want to see based on the last performance, most recent performance, and who's the better fighter. So I think a lot of times we get our mind, not us, but fan base. I'm talking to all of us as fan base. I think we get caught up in the moment, basically, instead of caught up in the time. And what I mean by time is there's a timeline. Let's let that timeline fill out, because we have a starting point and an end point. The end point hasn't happened yet. But somewhere along the middle, some things are going to happen, and we just have to just data log them and just keep it pushing until something happens. We're too busy looking at this moment to that moment, just like Virgil Ortiz. when he fought right after the Boots incident. Oh, he'll kill Boots. He'll do this. He'll do that. Right. So we have to stop putting the cart before the horse, I think, as fans, and just keep it straight with ourselves, because I think we do that a lot.
Okay. Yeah, shout out to Joseph Jackson. Says Brian Norman can wait it out. I know it's not can. I saw you change the word Joe Jackson. I don't even know why I didn't even I gotta get you a wrench as well. But he says can't wait. He can wait it out, then get a pay-per-view fight with Devin Ryan. 100%. But I'm gonna tell you like this. The reality is, and here's the wild card, right? The intangible, right? The variable that we just don't know, which is tomorrow's not promised today. You can lose. And if you do lose, what position does that put you in? And in the position that he's in right now as a WBO champion, he has the ability to capitalize on that position and put himself into some great conversations as long as he's champion, right? But for example, he's entertaining going to Japan to go fight Jin Sasaki for a decent payday. What if you lose that fight? Now, look, we don't entertain the losing so much, right? I'm sure as a fighter, you don't want to entertain that. But I'll say this, though. One could argue that pricing yourself out from the outside looking in, your biggest fight, one might say that you weighed out losing more than people might want to admit, right? Because if you were truly betting on yourself, then you would have made the fight the priority, right? And you would have said, damn it, I want to, but 1.7, let's just do it because I know my son's going to win anyway, and I know him being a unified champion is going to present all these opportunities. But when you're asking for the 2, one might argue that you're protecting the downside, right? You're protecting the reality of the fact that you could lose against Boots. And if you do lose, you want to make sure you walked away with it with the most that you can give your son, which I have no problems with, respectfully. Like, I can completely understand that mind state. But just kind of standing on what Joseph Jackson is saying here, that he can wait and get a pay-per-view fight with Devin Ryan. Well, yeah, he can wait, but he has to continue winning, right? And he wants to be active, right? Because you're getting $200,000, $300,000, $350,000 paydays, right, to fight. You need to be a little more active than the guy who's getting paid $2 million a fight, right? You need to be a little active. So each fight brings a risk versus reward scenario where he has to continue winning. And I'm sure you embrace the idea that you will continue winning. But we also know boxing has a dark side to it, which is as much as you can win, you can lose. So are you going to put your hopes into one bag, all your eggs in the basket of getting a Dev and Ryan fight next, when Dev and Ryan literally have all the options in the world? What kind of leverage are you going to have in a negotiation with Devin and Ryan? They're not even holding titles right now, so unifying with them is not even the attraction isn't there for them. Why fight you? Why not, make bigger fights? So the biggest opportunity for Brian Norman is this Boots fight right now. It's the big payday. It's a big accomplishment to win that fight. And things have changed where it seemed as if the leverage was really on their side during the time period where Boots was entertaining either fighting Karen or getting the belt stripped from them, right? Or moving up to 154. The pressure was on Boots at that point and Eddie Hearn to make a move, but the pressure isn't there anymore as it was. It's just not the same picture anymore. And the pressure is really on Brian Norman, on the Norman team to actually make something happen. And that's if I think the value, that 1.7, there's a good chance that they're going to get way less than that this time around if they make this fight happen. If this fight does happen, there's a good chance that they get way less than 1.7, or they're going to have to walk away from it. They're going to have to continue to gamble on the winning streak to remain there, and for other opportunities that are greater than what he's doing with Brian, with Boots Ennis, to be there in the future.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So it's interesting how the tables turn. It's interesting how negotiations work out, and how now you have Bozy Ennis sitting there going, right? he's sitting there going, look, we're not waiting around on these guys. So these guys need to know that we're not playing around you this time around. We don't need you no more. We kind of did, but we kind of did before, or we wanted to avoid the Karen fight. But the biggest blessing you might have ever gave us was to push us in that position where we fought Karen, looked pedestrian, gave Stanionis gave Stanionis, and more importantly, PBC and Tom Brown the courage to bet on Stanionis to give him an opportunity to become now unified and a lineal champion. And now you're sitting on an email championship, respectfully, what people might call an email championship, because you're being elevated from one status to the next. You never be the champion. You've lost a lot of the leverage that you had. And what is that going to look like? And what is that going to look like as far as money for you in your pockets, and as far as leverage in concerns to the negotiations on how this fight happens?
And Nick J has a really good point too. Them two with each other is one thing, but they're both B-side fighters, I think, compared to the other two fighters mentioned in that conversation. I mean, that's just be honest.
Just say the fighters in
Devin and Ryan. So either way,
if Devin and Ryan have interest in the fight, because they're prize fighters now more than legacy fighters. They're not tripping over unifying and undisputed and doing all that. It's about the money right now for them.
That's what I'm getting at. So I mean, in all due respect, I agree with her in that aspect. Like either fighter's going to make a payday fighting either one of them two. So a bigger payday, rather. I think they make a payday regardless, even if they unify with each other, because that's a fight that everyone wants to see. So with that being said, I do agree. And I agree with you. What you said actually was one point. I actually said, yes, I do agree. But just scanning through, I do understand where she's coming from. And that makes a lot of sense.
For sure. The opportunity there with Devin and Ryan is a big payday, maybe even a bigger payday than Fine Boots. But the question is, does Turki have that in his crosshairs? Turki gave them a 3-fight deal, and they have a game plan with that 3-fight deal. So that means more than likely you won't see Devin and Ryan until after that 3-fight deal. Where do they end up after that? Does Ryan stay at 147? Does he go to 154 when it's all said and done? You know what I'm saying? Does Devin stay at 147 and pursue championships there, or does he go to 154? Or does he make the bigger fight? I mean, the division has just stacked up, and you're going to have mandatories popping up. You got a whole new wave of talent that's coming to the division, right? I mean, T.O. is always legitimately an option. He's a WBO champion. So I'm not saying there's zero opportunities, but I'm saying as far as the pressure on Boots Ennis to make something happen, it's almost non-existent at this point. It's almost non-existent. Might have missed out on a big payday, I guess is what I'm saying at the end of the day. You'll have to bet on yourself to do things in the future that are great, but there was an opportunity there, and I think hindsight says that the decision didn't age as well as people thought it would, or wanted it to. I don't think it aged as well.
So I always say we got to sit back and be patient, Clay. Wait for things to develop, because once we start develop, excuse me, I don't know what's wrong with me today. I'm like, I don't know if it's a coffee. I can't pronunciate words, but anyway. Yeah, man, you're right, 1,000%, man. Let it develop first before we start throwing all our eggs in the basket. Like I said, you can't sit there and think, oh, okay, yeah, let me put everything in here, we're gonna win big. No, let things develop, because when you're wrong, you're wrong, and when things change, and like I said, the boxing gods put things back in place.
Yeah, and shout out to Roscott says, forget all this money talk. Who wins and how with Norman Jr. versus Boots? It's not money talk, Roscott. It's the fight happening talk. That's what it's about. It's not about the money. It's about the fight happening. The likeliness of the fight happen, and what's going to have to happen as far as concession is concerned, as far as at the negotiating table is concerned, in order for the fight to happen. I can answer that question very simply. I favor Boots to win that fight. I think Boots brings way more intangibles and has way more wrinkles to his game than Brian Norman Jr. I think Brian Norman Jr. always has a puncher's chance because he's a hard puncher, but at the end of the day, that's an easy conversation. But what are we talking about? The fight doesn't even happen.
Not us. He said the chat. He's referring to chat.
I caught in my peripheral that he put that there. But what I'm saying, that's where, I'm not pointing it at you, but I'm just saying at the end of the day, the negotiation conversation is important, just off the strength of what are we talking about on a fight that we might as well be talking about who would win between Sugar Ray Leonard and Terrence Crawford as well, right? We talk about that as well. We just want to talk about that, right?
Here we go.
If we're talking about fantasy, I'm just saying if we're talking about
here we go.
What are you talking about? You cutting me off?
Yeah. All right, go ahead.
What are you saying? Here we go about. What
Go
happened?
ahead. No, just go ahead. Read it. Read your comments.
Something else in comments?
No,
I'll put it up. This one right here?
Yes.
All right. Let's see here. Boots face a dude who comes gun blazing, no defense and nonstop pressure. We all know you're bound to get hit. You're bound. I think now there's the word. You're bound to get hit with that mind frame, not a special win.
You see what I'm talking about?
I mean, that's okay. You could feel basically what you're saying is you think Brian Norman has a real good chance of beating Boots. That's okay. I'm not going to argue that with you. What I'm saying is, what's the value of the fight now in comparison to months behind? That's the real conversation, Boxing LLC. It's not about who you think is going to win or lose. You can feel like Brian Norman Jr. is going to win. I have no problem with that. He's a puncher. He's not a lame. He's not a sitting duck or somebody just come into the ring just to get beat down. He's not a cherry pick. It would be a great fight. I'd love to watch that fight. If there's a fight happening at 147 right now, that's the fight I want to see. I'm not gonna lie to you, right? But the question is, what is the value of the fight? Because and the reason why it's a legitimate question and something to speak on is because there's arguments out there and with legitimate facts behind it to be made to say that the Normans priced themselves out of that last opportunity, right? You can go ahead and bring these other intangibles into it as far as the conditioning of Brian Norman Jr.'s hands, as far as Boots Ennis's obligations with mandatories, as far as all these things are concerned. We can go ahead and act like the fight never was going to happen, but in all reality, until those things came to the surface, the fight was in negotiations, and what was getting in the way of the fight happening was the price. Right? There was a price that was way too high, and the Normans showed willingness to walk away from the table if they didn't get the number they wanted. Well, now the tables have flipped a little bit because the value of the fight isn't there. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right, ladies and gentlemen? We always have to remember that, right? There's not a Kelly Blue Book boxing value out there, right? There's not a book that goes, oh, okay, well, this fight is no, it's all about how much the fighters want it, how much the investors are willing to pay for it. It's all based on these outside variables, right? In the beginning, there was certain leverage that the Normans had that gave them the courage to be hard-nosed negotiators that would not take less than a certain amount. And this is what I need. That's moved on. It's different now. Boots is now a lineal unified champion in a division. And most people don't even think, not including you, obviously, but most people think nobody at 147 has anything for Boots. So Boots legitimately may have nothing left to prove at 147. Nothing left to prove. Hence, go to 154, leverage my accolades that I've earned at 147 and get into the biggest fights at 154. What are the Normans going to bring to the table to get the payday that they want and convince Boots to hang back at 147, stick with that nutritionist and unify with them and give them that bread?
Right. So I got a question to that question, and maybe you can lean some light on it. And I actually want to make a statement right after I ask the question. And it's not to answer that question, just to add something to it. What does Brian Norman do much differently than the way you described this fight that just happened? Yes, he has a little bit more defense. Yes, he's not in there swinging willy-nilly. And for the most part, what have we seen him do in his last two fights? Move forward, right? Non-stop pressure. Be there to be hit if necessary. Yes, he has a better defense, I believe, than Stanley Owens. But Stanley Owens always fought behind the high guard. I think Brian Norman fights behind the high guard as well. But they look to punish and knock out their opponents, right? They sit there and they swing haymakers, hooks, inside punches. They're fighting the box, if I'm not mistaken. That's number one. Now, my statement
hold it down for a second.
Yeah, all right, no problem. Now, my statement is I want to say this. We're talking about how these fights are made for what they are in the test of time and the money aspect of boxing, man. Let's keep it real. What does the money have to do with anything of this fight being happening? Is the fact that this man just unified. What made the opponent, Derek Cuevas, who came off a 2-year layoff, more credible than Stanley Owens, who had a belt and came off a 16-month or 12-month layoff to fight Boots. So we're sitting here, we're trying to put apples and oranges together in a peach bucket, and it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I get it, and yes, they're both great fighters, but who was more dangerous? Who was a fighter that was supposed to make more noise? Who was a fighter that was supposed to make things happen, right? And hold on, I like you, bro. Eddie Hearn never wanted to make the fight. Eddie didn't want to make the fight. Okay, I mean, if you say so, all right, sure. We're gonna blame it on Eddie now, so we just move the needle. You're a goalpost mover. You're out of state. I don't know what you're talking about. All right, move on. Anyway, back to what's going on is we talking all this mumble jumble and using all these different excuses just to put the stuff out there that people want to hear, right? These narratives. Again, do I have to remind you guys? Like, you can keep doing what you want to do, but at the end of the day, all you're doing is just turning yourself into Bob Ross. I got to bring it up again. Why do I got to keep being y'all today? Yo, stop expressing yourselves like this and be real people and understanding of certain things, because it's ridiculous that we got to keep putting these same push button narratives out there that we hear on the streets that lead to nowhere. But go ahead, Paul. Go ahead, Clay. Continue. I'm done. Oh, you want to answer that question? I forgot what the question was. I did ask you.
I'm catching up. You know what I'm saying? I had to go. You know, take a piss. Pause. Whatever. I don't know if that's.
Sorry. Yeah. Find yourself a tree.
But yeah, man, guys. We can always revisit history, right? And we can try to put context to the things that we saw, especially in the areas that are gray, with the areas that we don't know what's going on, right? The things we aren't really made privy to, we can add our own twist to it and kind of give it some look or something, especially if, you know, if the intention is on supporting your fighter, right? If for example, if Brian Norman Jr. is the fighter that you're choosing to support in this conversation, right? If you're not riding the fence down the middle and just trying to get some real perspective on it, if your agenda is to defend Brian, then there's arguments out there to say that, look, Boots came to the table disingenuous, that he had a mandatory that superseded this whole thing, so the whole negotiation was farce, right? Or you might even say Eddie Hearn was never trying to put the fight together, that he intentionally lowballed the Normans in the beginning in order to get them to not take the fight, to force Boots up to 154, right? There's always that argument. There's also an argument, if you're defending Boots' side, to say that, well, you know, they were disingenuous as well, because at the end of the day, they knew that Brian Norman Jr. had a hand injury. And not only did he have a hand injury, but he was in the middle of a negotiation that would seem to be getting finalized, that Bob Arum had already coordinated a fight between him and Derek Cuevas, and that in turn, they were going to have to pay Bob Arum this step-aside money, or this cross-the-street money, because now they were going to cancel a fight that Bob Arum already had promoted that would have put it right underneath the top-ranked banner, gotten Bob Arum paid, but now they were actually going to move away from that fight to go outside and fight on a matchroom card in Philadelphia, to fight Jerron Boots Ennis, and that they had to make it worth their while. So maybe this was the reasoning behind the pricing that people are calling being priced out, right? All of these arguments could be made if this is where you choose to stand at. But if we're looking forward, right, if we're paying attention to what's in front of us, then the biggest thing on the table is how likely and why should the fight happen from a fighter's perspective that's already earned the respect of the division in the boxing space and community as a lineal champion on paper, unified champion on paper, and an undisputed champion in the fact that they don't believe anybody in the division is going to beat them. If Boots Ennis were to fight Brian Norman Jr. right now, it would be a personal thing. It would not be business-wise the best move for him, right? Because business-wise, if we're talking about business, which is right aligned with the most money he could make, the opportunities are at 154, as clear as day, right? The leverage, once again, is only important in the fact of how does this fight get put together, and does it take Brian Norman Jr. and Sr. and that team to concede and take a fair rate, but not a premium rate like what they were asking for before, in the spirit of making this fight. And if they're not willing to budge, then that fight, in all reality, probably isn't going to be made based off of Bozy Ennis speaking and saying that he's not going to wait around these guys. They're not going to get into a tough negotiation at this point with what they've done with Brian Norman's team to make this fight. The negotiations will not be tough. If the negotiations turn tough, they are showing they're willing to walk away, and that fight just doesn't get made. Despite your personal opinions about who you think is going to win, on the reasonings why the fight didn't happen, 6 months or so ago. Despite all that, the reality, there's a present reality that I think holds more weight than whatever happened in the past, right? Shout out to Robert Chandler, who's supporting the channel today, putting $20 in the $20 in the color and putting color in the chat. I love that orange color, man. Robert Chandler says Boots increases value being lineal 2-time champion. Norman will leverage the Japan paycheck in June to increase his value. I'm predicting they don't come to terms, and we'll see the Norman PR. We'll see the Norman PR push to the media on DAZN lowballing. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to go to go fight Jin Sasaki. They're going to get a decent payday over there. They're going to try to leverage that, and I think Boots is just not going to care. I think they're going to run into a wall and realize that Eddie Hearn, more importantly, more than Boots, or maybe Eddie Hearn and Boots and Bozy and that team doesn't care as much as they think they should care. And I think that the only way this fight happens is by, respectfully, Brian Norman's team bending the knee. I think that's the only way this fight happens, is to make it lucrative. This right here is starting to go right next to Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson negotiations. If you guys want to revisit that, this is starting to give a lot of that feeling, right? Where Devin doesn't have to do anything because he's already done what he's going to do at 135, and it's time for him to go to 140, right? So what are you going to do to make that fight happen, Shakur? Are you going to sacrifice and take whatever offers on the table in order to get them undisputed belts and be an undisputed champion at 135 so you can leverage a division that doesn't even want to fight you because of the style of fighting you have? Or are you going to play hardball, negotiate, and watch Devin make a fight like that with Regis Prograis, and before you know it, the fight be done with? So what are you going to do, Brian Norman? Are you going to negotiate with Eddie Hearn and Jerron Boots Ennis' team and Eddie Hearn and those guys and make the fight happen by any means necessary? I'm not saying walk away with hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm sure you can still get a 1.5, 1.2 million, 1.5 million. Are you going to take that and be like, yo, I'm okay with that? And then are you going to take everything that comes with it, which means it's going to happen at the Wells Fargo Center, which means it's going to happen on Boots', you know what I'm saying, terms and conditions? Are you going to do that? Or is a negotiation going to hit a point to where you don't give this guy nothing to work with and he just moves on to the next opportunity? Yeah,
I love this guy. But go ahead. I'm having fun. You go ahead.
It is what it is. It is what it is, man. But I think it's going to be interesting to watch it all play out. I'm going to be here to watch it play out. I'm going to go ahead and move the needle, though. Let's go on to the next topic. Ultimately, at this point, we are where we are. Boots Ennis is taking time off to go relax, weigh out his options. Brian Norman Jr. seems to be, him and his team look like they're going to be coordinating something before September, October, which is when Boots is expected to be back in the ring again. Jin Sasaki seems to be like the legitimate fight on the table. Payday, international exposure, makes sense to me. Let's see what happens in the coming days, right? Let's go ahead and move the needle to the next topic at hand. So Usyk versus Dubois 2 finalizing for July 12th, right? Seems like that fight is...
Yeah, I've seen that.
If people were weighing out whether it was going to be Joseph Parker or whatever it was going to be, and no, it looks like the deal is damn near going to be finalized. They're planning on having it at the Wembley Stadium, which means they're expecting anywhere from 50,000 and north of that to show up for this fight. This is going to be a big fight. Once again, undisputed on the line. Alexander Usyk was able to negotiate with the WBO. He petitioned them because they were trying to activate the Joseph Parker situation and threatening to strip him of that title. The WBO, in the spirit of seeing undisputed happen again, I believe the president of the WBO said, in the spirit of what's best for boxing. Love you, boy. Shout out to Showbiz and that term, but shout out to the president of the WBO who did the right thing.
Terrible. And
got out the way of boxing instead of getting in the way of boxing, right? He didn't get in the way like some Mauricio Suleiman. Some guys do. He got out the way and said, for the betterment of boxing, it's best that we keep it the way it is. Let's make it for undisputed. Let's make a big fight. So Alexander Usyk, Daniel Dubois, undisputed, Wembley Stadium, July 12th. Where you at with it?
Listen, man, I'm all for it. Big fight. You got I think he's more the traveling gypsy champion than
He's a road warrior, bro. Yeah,
the Tyson Fury was. You know what I mean? He moves around the world, fights, doesn't really have a home and nowhere to stand due to the circumstances of his country. Gotta be willing, everything gets better. But listen, man, this is a great fight. This is where it needs to happen, right? This is a guy that literally put you on your knees, was very questionable. Oh, this is also a guy that really was able to get knocked out after that situation and wants his own revenge. And not only turned it around, but went on a whole ass-kicking contest to end up being a champion and get the belt that they stripped from you in that sense. So only way you're going to get that belt back is by beating this guy. And I think there's a big fight, and it's meant to happen. Now, unfortunately, we had some situations that occurred where we didn't get to see him defend that title, which I would have liked to see him against Joseph Parker, which was an amazing fight on the rise. But due to circumstances, this is where we are here. This is where we are at. And I think this is going to be a mega fight. I think we got Balrog versus Zangief in this matchup. And I think we're going to see some fireworks, bro. And I think this is what we really need in the square circle, champion versus champion.
Yeah, look, without a doubt, man, there was some controversy in that last fight that they had between them. A lot of people felt like Daniel Dubois, that wasn't a low blow, the famous low blow. You know what I mean? People feel like it was a low blow. Other people feel like it wasn't. But I think more importantly, Daniel Dubois feels like there's unfinished business on the table. He feels like he kind of got robbed in that fight and feels like he's a guy who came the closest to beating Alexander Usyk. He had him down. Felt like if you would have put that 10 count on him, he might not have made the 10 count, being that the body shot was so impactful. So there's a story there, right? And I mentioned this earlier when shout out to Fight Sports Talk came up here and brought up, he made the argument for Joseph Parker to be the guy, rightfully so, that he deserved it. He also did a lot of work. And look, I didn't have a lot of argument for that. I think Joseph Parker has worked his way into position to be part of a big fight like this and get a shot at undisputed. But only one guy can go. Everybody can't go, right, Ray? The story, the money behind this fight, the idea, Alexander Usyk also, Daniel Dubois did the work as well, obviously, fighting those crazy 3 fights he had between Jarrell Big Baby Miller to what he did to Philip Ergovich, and then, ultimately stopping Anthony Joshua the way he did. And then he did the big thing, right? He walked up in the ring on the back end of Tyson Fury, Alexander 2, and he called him out like the old school guys did, right? Frank Warren made sure that he got his fighter up in that ring and made him call him out. Salute, champ, respect to you. You're an undisputed champion. You beat Tyson Fury twice, but I got robbed. I want my lick back. Let's make it happen. Alexander Usyk obliged and said, "Hey, where you at, Turkey? Make this fight happen." Right there. It set the momentum to get this fight going. It makes sense to me. I'm loving it. I want to see it. I think we got the future of boxing, and potentially somebody who's on his way out the door. You got the future and what a lot of people consider the most dangerous and the best heavyweight in the game outside of Alexander Usyk. And here you have a cookie cutter best fight right here, right? This is the up and coming IBF champion who they feel like is going to be running the whole entire space against the proven road warrior, tried true undisputed heavyweight champion that's on his way out the door. But one last hurrah for a big payday. You got Turki Alalshikh and Riyadh Season willing to finance it. So you got some big money that's going to be on the table. Big payday for these fighters. You saw what they did last time between Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois. They packed 90,000 plus people into Wembley Stadium. It was a spectacle. It was exciting. It was one of the best shows I saw live. It was one of those shows and one of the only shows that I've seen where I had FOMO, where I felt like I missed out. I wanted to be there. The walkouts were intense. The crowd was going crazy. And they get a chance to go ahead and do it again, man. So why not, man? Dubois, Usyk, 2. That being said, though, we've got other fights. Let's stay in the heavyweight division. This fight is not finalized yet. It's being finalized, supposedly. That's what rumor has. But let's go ahead and talk about the rest of the division now, because, look, what about Joe Parker? What's the next move for Joseph Parker at this point, right? Like, he doesn't get this fight. I'm sure he's not too happy about it. Hence, I put the graphic of the I'm upset Joseph Parker on there. You know what I mean? I'm tired of this nonsense. Joseph Parker is not a spring chicken, right? He's up in age as well. He needs his opportunity. What's the next opportunity? What makes sense for Joseph Parker? What about Joseph Parker? What about me? What about
Caviel, man? Caviel makes the most sense. Why not? Why not? You what? Caviel and Joseph Parker.
Oh wow!
They have to fight. First of all, they're probably the closest in size, closest in abilities. One's a good boxer, knows how to keep his range, and one's a body puncher that uses his length and his arm reach. Right? Why not? Why not? Somebody's got to lose, right? They're both great opportunists. Opportunities there for both of them. So it's great moments for them right now in the shine. And the loser doesn't have to go home, Clay. That's what's crazy about them two fighting each other. The loser doesn't have to go home. They just become next in line after the ones that's next in line, because it shows you where these guys are. This division is climbing back up. And there's another guy that's coming up on the rise of the tail end of these guys, and Atuma. You know what I mean? So let's keep it real. Where does he fit into this picture? Because he's out there KOing and dropping people like left and right, first round Mike Tyson British style. I ain't joking. So if anything, all of them better be wary of him. And we can't forget about the guy that just got knocked out off a 2-day flying, who wasn't right for that fight. Does he have something to say about it? Because I feel like he was unjust. And that could be that could be a rematch in the making too. Because McCauley could be like, listen, man, you got me. Yes, you got me. But guess what? You got to show me. You got me once. You want to show me. You got to do this again. So it's two different fights. Yeah.
I think the Martin Bakole fight is off the table. It's just too much of a risk. You've lost. I have no reason to fight you. This is about weighing out, because Joseph Parker is in a very sensitive spot right now. He's in a very sensitive spot, and he needs to be concerned with protecting his position. Now, I think from a boxing fan's point of view, there's legitimacy behind all these arguments, right? Even with the Aji Kabayel fight, as a boxing fan, this is the fight to make. Clearly, make this fight happen. I want to see Aji Kabayel, Joseph Parker in the ring. These guys have history. They sparred each other. They work with each other. They got respect for each other. Let's make this fight happen, right? But let's take off our boxing fan hat for half a second, which I hate to do. I know it's blasphemy because we're always boxing fans. But let's put on the business hat just a little bit, and let's play chess, not checkers. And let's be honest with the fact that Joseph Parker is in a great position right now, and he wants to protect that position. Aji Kabayel is a great fight without a doubt, man. But Joseph Parker, this face right here isn't the face of somebody who wants to prove anything to the boxing fans anymore. He wants his opportunity of becoming undisputed, and he's right there. So there's another option, Ray. And the other option is he waits. He sits on the sidelines. He allows these guys to fight in July. It's not that far away. It's actually a pretty quick turnaround if they're talking about making this fight in July. And you wait. You train. You get with Andy Lee. You get better, and you prepare yourself to fight the winner of this fight. But at the same exact time, if activity is the thing, if activity is key for you to be who you need to be that night, then you do need to make a fight. And there's two legitimate options on the table, Ray. Two legitimate options.
Okay.
One of them is ranked number 2 right now in the WBA, in the WBO ranking sanctioning body right now for the heavyweight division. He's young and he's up and he's coming. He could take the chance, but it's still going to be a difficult fight. In a fight that will still sell and put him on there. We've got Moses Atuma right now ranked number 2 in the WBO rankings. He's definitely there, and it would be a big fight. They've talked about fast-tracking him. They were talking about actually putting him in position to become a champion to beat Mike Tyson's record. That's already passed by. Moses Atuma has become older, but he's right there. This is a fight that could be made with Joseph Parker. A very dangerous fight, but he might be able to take advantage of the up-and-comer prospect of the year, Moses Atuma, who might just not have the experience. If you're going to fight somebody like this, now is better than later. He's only going to get better. I agree. Moses Atuma is a legitimate fight, stay busy fight, and still a big fight. And I got an idea, could even be on the undercard maybe of Alexander Usyk. You know what I'm saying? Alexander Usyk, Daniel Dubois fight. Great setup. Winner of that fight gets a shot at becoming undisputed. The question is to fast track or not to fast track. That is the question, right? And I got one more fighter that I want to put in the ring.
Okay, let's see.
I got one more fighter that can make it happen, man.
Like, surprise me. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't sound like pause. I knew it.
What about Derek Chisora? Derek Chisora right now the mandatory for Daniel Dubois and the IBF. The IBF hasn't ordered a fight yet, but if they do, I'm sure Daniel Dubois and his team plan on petitioning the same way that Usyk did with the WBO to say, hey, man, don't threaten to take away my title. We're going to make history here. Don't take that belt off me right now. Respect the champ, man. Respect what we're doing. Now, they weren't that nice to Alexander Usyk because that's how ultimately Daniel Dubois ended up becoming a champion. But Derek Chisora looking to get involved in a big fight, looking to stay in the conversation to become a champion. Derek Chisora versus Joseph Parker. What do you think about that fight?
I knew that was coming up. For Joseph Parker, that's an amazing fight. In Wembley, this might be a bigger fan base in Wembley than Usyk and Daniel Dubois. Because this right here has a lot riding on it. You got New Zealand, which is basically News England, right? A lot of people don't know that. In England, good old Great Britain themselves. Champion, the warrior, Mr. Chisora. Guys, ageless, been out there, great test, not going to back down, going to give you a full fight unless you stop him. That right there was one of the fighters I was thinking of, and he's highly ranked. Why not?
No doubt, no doubt. Salute to everybody in the building. We got 31 people in the building. If you haven't hit the like button, please take an opportunity to go ahead and do that. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you know, you're always invited to do that as well. Yeah, listen, man, you got an option. You can go young gun. You can go young gun, up and coming fighter Moses Atuma and give him an opportunity. A lot of people would say that you'd be taking a big risk. Moses Atuma is a up and coming talent. Young bull, has everything to gain, nothing to lose. Wants to win by any means necessary. Undefeated. It checks the boxes in some areas, but as far as risk reward, huge risk, I think, to get in the ring with the young bull Moses Atuma, who's primed to take your spot and get up in there and fight the winner of that fighting against Daniel Dubois. Now, listen, man, I want to make an argument for Moses Atuma. Turki Alalshikh may like this fight more than Joseph Parker likes this fight, right? Turki Alalshikh, the guy funding the money, might like this fight with Moses Atuma more than he likes the Derek Chisora fight because the future of the heavyweight division is with Moses Atuma, and he might want to see the fight. And you know how he is. He's all about the stylistically challenging great fights. He wants to see the best fight the best, right? So there's an argument there that Frank Warren, Turki Alalshikh, maybe moving pieces in the background to see Joseph Parker get in the ring with this number 2 ranked WBO fighter right here to get him in the ring with Joseph Parker. Now, here's the argument for Derek Chisora real quick before you go. Derek, before you cut in, Derek Chisora, on his way out the door, has built up a huge fan base in England. I mean, you look at his record, it doesn't even make sense, right?
Absolutely.
Look at his record, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't even match, but the people in the UK who I think honestly are some of the best boxing fans in the world, if not the best boxing fans in the world, because you can lose and they're still going to show up. They're still going to pack out the building. They're still going to make a spectacle out of it. They're going to celebrate you as long as you're one of those fighters who show up and fight. And this man checks those boxes. Derek Chisora delivers. He's going to fight the living out of you every time. 10 out of 10 times, this guy's going to give you that fight. But he's older. He's a safer fight. He's a more locked-in win, and I think he gets more money. I think the payday looks greater against Derek Chisora than it does against Moses Atuma, unless Turki just breaks the rules and just breaks the bank and spends money and overpays for the fight. Derek Chisora seems like the fight that makes more sense. Am I right? Wrong?
I'm liking what you're saying, right? I like this fight because I think it's a 50-50 fight. It sounds crazy, right? And I like the Atuma versus Efe fight. Also on the undercard to build up maybe a true competitive fight or the next line. Yeah.
Well, we got to remember that there's a problem here.
Excuse me. Let me back that up. Let's not give it to Efe yet. Efe should be. I think they should do like they did before that big fight they did in December with all the heavyweights. The day of the reckoning or something like that.
Yeah, you talking about the 5v5 that they did?
No.
Not that. I know you're talking about the
one before that.
Joshua was on there fighting against
Yeah. That big
was on there fighting against Joseph.
Right. So put these guys in order, right?
Yeah.
The reason why I'm saying that because then you have Jeet Caviel still up there, right? You get FA in the ring with a Moses too because I think he's a good fighter, and you get a G Cabiel in the ring with somebody else that's also ranked high and that's strong enough. Maybe a Fabio Worley if he comes out this fight on top, and put him in the ring as well. Get these guys all in the ring together and let them all bang out, bro. Like at the end of the day, there's a lot of opportunity for us to get acclimated back to heavyweight fighting. Remember, not everybody's sold on these fights right now, Clay, because we don't have a super duper American guy in the race. So over here on this stateside, we don't see the fights as they should be. It also gives Big Baby Miller opportunity to get his feet wet again if he decides to do so. He didn't look great in his last performance, but hey, why not? Because I'm going to tell you something too, Clay. I just want to put this out, and I was going to say it earlier. Big Baby Miller had the same opportunity that besides the 2-day coming off a 2-day weigh-in or whatever. Well, ain't no weigh-in, but fight call for Piccoli. Big Baby Miller had more opportunity to prepare for Piccoli, and vice versa.
Oh, you're talking about Jared? Okay,
I'm sorry, Jared. Yeah, but he had more opportunity, right? Even though it was vice versa, Piccoli had more opportunity to prepare for him. But I believe the more skilled fighter, and when I say skilled, I mean boxer-wise, was Big Baby Miller, and he was unable to beat Piccoli.
Big Baby, you talking about Anderson?
Anderson. I keep saying Miller. Excuse me, Anderson. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the correction. But that puts him in another point of contest to make the Tuma fight with him as well, or maybe even Frank Sanchez fight with him. So there's a lot of moving pieces just to get him back acclimated into this circle to bring American boxing also into that picture. But there's a lot of fights to be made at this heavyweight division, Clay. I think from 1 to 15, who you got? That's it. I'm calling it. Forget about the 2 champions. Everybody underneath, who you got? Because this is just as good as 154 right now. It's a melting pot of success.
Yeah, it's very top heavy. The heavyweight division is very top heavy, but it's a lot of great fights that happen up there. That top 10 is heating up.
Crazy. I see top 15. Forget the top 10. There's a lot of anybody can take it at any day, bro.
Yeah.
But I like what you put up there. I like the opportunity for Chisora and Parker. I like that. That's actually a really good matchup. D. Cabiel, let's get him another fight somewhere else. You know what I mean? Maybe get him a fight.
He's just dangerous, bro. You just don't fight him. You fight him because you gotta fight him, and it makes sense. You don't just jump in the ring with him. He's
why not? Why not?
Because he's the boogeyman. He's scary, bro. These fighters, bro. Listen, bro. No, you don't do it. You don't do it.
So what about Pulev? What about Pulev in the G? Would that be a good fight? Pulev. Yeah,
Pulev. Yeah, he's holding an interim title right now. Where is he at? The WBA?
No, it's WBA regular. He's not the interim. Yeah.
Interim regular, whatever. Yeah, he's holding the smaller WBA fight.
Right. So we have so many opportunities for all these fighters to get in the ring with each other, man. I'm telling you, so there's a list. You can start checking them off. Why not?
It is what it is, man. It is what it is. That was a good little build right there. Let's move forward and talk about where we left off yesterday. So Eubank versus BENN.
I'm about to go get some eggs. Hold on, I'll be right back. It cost too much, Clay. I can't.
Eubank versus BENN almost here, man. April 26th is going down, man. Family feud, man. Blood vendetta going on between these two guys. It is what it is, right? The family, the fathers, we know the story about the fathers. We know about Chris Eubank Sr., and we know about Nigel Benn, the destroyer. You know what I'm saying? We know about the 2 fights that they had and the legacy that they left behind for their sons to go ahead and pick up. And this fight just wasn't all that for me in the beginning, right? I was like, all right, these guys want to fight. For me, it was always a fight for England, right? Like it was a fight for the UK. Like the people in England know this story. The history was there, and so it was a fight that really didn't pull me that way because these guys, there was that weight disparity. Conor Benn was just this 147-pound fighter who really, I think, didn't he fight at 144 a minute as well?
Yeah, he fought 140, 147, went up to 155
or something like that.
Right? Back down to 47. Yeah, he's shit. Yeah.
Right. So it was a fight that really didn't, like, I was going to watch it because I'm a boxing fan, and I knew one thing I knew for sure was going to be a shootout because I know how Conor Benn fights and I know how Chris Eubank can fight. But the fight has grown on me. Right. I'm not going to lie. It's grown on me. It's become a fight that I need to see this year. I really believe that this fight has fight of the year candidate written all over it. Where are you at with this fight? No, not fight of the year candidate. Go ahead.
No, I think yes, but no. I say no because I think there's some big fights coming around the corner that we not privy to seeing yet. But I'm going to tell you this: Chris Eubanks, I don't think even had an idea of really wanting to fight Conor Benn after a while. I think he was just sitting there like, yo, listen, whatever your dad had with my dad, I really don't care about. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But I think because he kept ignoring the fact, because he became the bad guy and the underling of England, and nobody really wanted to support him, and he kind of tasted some bad blood for certain things, and people wanted to see him lose. Conor Benn rose to the occasion to be the knight in shining armor. Conor Benn has been a bad guy, almost like a bully towards Chris Eubanks, calling him out, saying all types of things, trying to keep the rivalry going. And I don't think Chris Eubanks ever had any inkling of caring for this rivalry. But since Conor Benn decided to keep pushing, Chris Eubanks decided to accept. Decided to okay, listen, man, let me tell you something, little man. Let me tell you something, little man. You want to come fight me, knowing that there's no point in you fighting me. So guess what? I'm gonna teach you something. You know, it's like the 8th grader and the 5th grader. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And the 5th grader just thinks he's tough, so he's just gonna keep pushing the bullet until that guy just knocks him down. Chris Eubanks gonna show this dude something, bro, that we ain't seen kind of been in a situation before. My words. It's crazy because Conor Benn is fighting on fury. He's fighting on fire. He's fighting on anger. He's fighting with something to prove. Chris Eubanks is like, bro, I done did this already. I don't even care, but I want to make a mockery out of you because you've been hounding me, putting me to shame, doing this. Like, you realize I am not the person I am because of you, and I ignored it, but now you want to keep pushing this envelope? I'm about to slay you, bro. Forget about it. So what's the first thing he did? I'm going to build this fight. I'm a quiet person. We don't see Chris Eubanks talking much, right? Junior. But what did he do? Matt, hey, what did he do next? Throw the eggs. And did you see what he did? He fried the eggs now, and he's eating the eggs in his Louis Vuitton jacket. Yeah, he got a lot of disrespect towards Conor Benn, and Conor Benn is literally losing it because he just can't resist the fight, the temptation, and is making it really saucy in the buildup of this fight. And I want to see it too, Clay. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that I agree with you. I think Chris Eubank he didn't seem as interested in this fight happening before. It was a fight like, all right, well, for my father's legacy, I mean, this fight potentially has caused Chris Eubank a lot of loss as far as the relationship with his father. It cost him a lot, even though it was there before. There was issues already there, but this fight definitely didn't help the relationship out between senior and junior. So he's taking a lot on his shoulders in order to make this fight happen. And I think what's driven this fight to happening is the bag, right? Like Turki Alalshikh getting involved in this. I think he's making north of $10 million to make this fight happen. And Conor Benn obviously sitting in the same boat. But it was a fight he wasn't interested in making. Why? Because at the end of the day, he was gonna have to cut a lot of weight. There's a weight cut involved in putting this fight together, and it looks like Eubanks wasn't excited about it. Senior clearly wasn't excited about it, but even Junior was like, this fight, you know what I mean? Really, I'm on my way to my biggest fights. Chris Eubank trying to make big fights with Canelo Alvarez and get into certain conversations. And this Conor Benn fight really wasn't going to be that attractive for him. But here he is getting this huge payday, and that's why he's doing it, right? It's for the payday. He likes the money, just like other fighters love the money, right? Salute L-Dub Boxing. What's good with you, family? So he loves the money like a lot of other fighters love the money. But now he's agreed to go ahead and fight for this huge amount of money. He's going to be cutting weight, going down to 160. He's fought at 160 against Liam Smith, right? with Liam Smith, and Liam Smith was able to clip him and get him out of there. A lot of people would attribute that to, the weight cut and him not being completely hydrated and not being where he was, where he could be. I think the father went ahead and said that was the reason. That's how he felt about it. So here he is about to fight again at 160 against a puncher in Conor Benn, who's going to be completely hydrated. He's going to be in his best form. You got to think Conor Benn's walking around anywhere from 170 to 180 on any given Sunday, just walking around that way. And him sitting there fighting at 160 with no rehydration clause on him, and obviously also considering the fact that Chris Eubank has agreed to a rehydration clause the morning of the fight, it makes it a very dangerous fight for Chris Eubank. But he's put pride on the line, and he's put a lot on the line for the love of money, and Senior's on a different page with him as far as the integrity behind putting a fight this way. You'll see interviews with Chris Eubank Sr. speaking on the idea that he spoke to Nigel Benn and said, don't do this. He talked to them and said, please don't make this fight happen. He really believes his son is in danger, and he might very well be in danger, being that not only does he have to stay at 160, but he also has to fight with a rehydration clause. But at the end of the day, Chris Eubank has put some twist on this, right? The egg in the face, the promotion of this fight. He's made this fight bigger than what it was before. And without a doubt, taken my attention and made me want to see this fight more than I ever wanted to see this fight. I just believe the heart, the will, the passion, the anger, the contentment, the resentment that both these fighters have for each other is just overwhelming. And it just, to me, it turns into a big, messy shootout fight in England on April 26th. And I can't wait to see it, guys, right? I just can't wait to see it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the link into the channel right now. We're opening the panel up, so feel free to come up, build with us. Let me know what you think on some of the topics we talked about, or if maybe there's some things you didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about. You know what I mean? The undercard is low-key fire. It's not getting enough attention. You know what? I haven't even checked the undercard out like that, L-Dub. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. Maybe that'll be the next conversation, right? I'm not gonna do it right now and turn it into a thing, but I really haven't looked at the undercard that way. Should I pull it up? Maybe I should just pull it up, right? Since you talked about it, L-Dub, let's pull it up. F it, right? Let's pull it up. Let's see who pulls up on the panel. 1 second here. That time running low too. So let me know, guys. If you're not gonna come up, it's all good, because I do got things to do. I've been real busy past couple of weeks, man. It's been kind of hard for me to be up here for these 4-hour marathons. I ain't gonna lie. Got so many things I'm working on outside of this as of late. But let's see here. Let's pull up the event card right here. Who do we got here on the undercard here? Oh, we got Liam Smith, who's going to be on the card. Okay. Oh, yeah. Anthony Yardy is going to be on the undercard fighting against Lyndon Arthur. That's going to be a good fight. Christian William Smith is going to be fighting Brandon Glatton. And we got Vidal Riley. And, oh, that's going to be the fight right there, probably. That fight right there, Vidal Riley versus Chevon Clark might be fight of the night on the card. I don't know. I think Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn is just going to be like that, though. I'm not going to lie to you. But Vidal Riley and Chevon Clark is going to be an epic fight, and so is the Anthony Yardy, Lyndon Arthur fight. And, it'll be interesting to see Liam Smith make up his mind if he's going to stay or go, right? It's going to be one of his last. How old is Liam Smith? It doesn't say his age on here. But, Liam got them grades for a reason, right? He got them grades on his head for a damn reason. Told you, good card altogether. Yeah, no doubt, L-Dub for sure, man. That's going to be a really good card, man. April 26th right out there at Tottenham, London, at the Hotspur Stadium, right? It is what it is. We don't got anybody coming up. Let me know. Going once, going twice. The link is there. If you feel like stepping up on the panel to build, we can make it happen. Other than that, we might be wrapping this up. This might be an early one, guys. This definitely might be an early one, man. Let me know how you feeling. See Ray's back.
I'll come up. I'll be here. I represent the people. Held up in the building. Peace. You know what I mean? I represent the people, Clay.
No doubt. Guys,
Ray all day, Sugar Ray.
Guys, remember to hit that like button and definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it yet. We're about there, though. We're about there, man. Going once, going twice. All right, man. No, look, man, it is what it is, Ray. What happened?
They don't want to battle? Where my boy at? Where my boy at? No, I'm just messing with you.
Bub said he was going to show us Alaska, man. It is what it is. But it was a decent show, man.
Funny, bro. Yo, I seen that earlier. I seen that earlier. Anyway, Teach don't want to come up.
No, they good.
There's a lot to talk about going on in boxing right now.
You know what I mean? It's not always. If you ain't got nothing to say, you shouldn't say nothing. You know what I'm saying? It is
That's true. That's true. What about Boxing LLC? He had something to say earlier.
I mean, listen, man. He would have been there. The link is there. So look, it is what it is. Salute to everybody in the building, man. Great boxing talk. We'll be back on tomorrow morning. Covered the topics that I wanted to cover for the most part. I don't think there's any stone we left unturned, man. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you for the love. Thank you, Robert Chandler, for the love and putting color in the chat today, man. Guys, like I said, remember to hit that like button if you haven't done it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, man. Other than that, though, I'll leave it up to Ray to put out the outro. We good.
Yeah, man. Listen, ain't nothing but good fights all year so far, man. It doesn't matter what platform you rock with. Doesn't matter who you support. Nothing but good fights, and this is what we want, man. This is what we wanted in boxing. We wanted to come back. We want to see the politics move out the way. We want to see boxing moving forward. We want to be able to support. Remember, boxing is no longer being promoted by the networks. And when I mean that is ESPN, ABC, CBS, Showtime, USA, Madison Square Garden. All these guys are moving away from boxing because they believe it's dead. It's us YouTube guys, us content creators are bringing boxing back to the forefront. We are bringing these guys back to the table. We are allowing boxing to be heard. Shout out to all the people who are out there on YouTube. Shout out to the people on Twitter. Shout out to everybody on Instagram. Shout out to the people in the Discords. You know what I mean? You guys are just like us, are bringing boxing back. And thank you. I'll really support every channel, you know what I mean, regardless of what you think. I just want to tell you, thank you for what you're doing for the sport, because with us, our voices and the ears that are out there inside of the arena allows us to bring this sport back to the forefront. And we'll start seeing these fights back on HBO, Showtime, and more than Amazon, Netflix, and things of that nature. So on that, I'm done, Clay. Clay ran away. He want me to hold it down some more.
Nah. It is what it is, man. Salute to everybody who was in the building today, man. Hit your like buttons, hit your subscribe button, man. You know how it is. It's your boy Clay, it's your boy Ray, it's at ATP Combat Media Show. And legitimately, at this point,
we out.
They hate when you elevate. The second of losses, I'm handing them out, yeah, I had to go delegate. It feel like I'm floating, I'm lost in the moment, I swear I could levitate. They never believed that I would really fly, I had to go demonstrate. I had to set them straight. They hate when you elevate. Elevate, elevate. They hate when you elevate. Elevate, elevate. Yeah, they hate when you elevate. Elevate, elevate. They hate when you elevate. Yeah, I had to elevate. I'm way up, way too fly. Yeah, I'm feeling myself. Ain't no chance I'm coming down, no. Got a soul view to myself, yeah. Why would I give it up? Why do they want to come take my place? I work too hard for it, don't need a replacement. This my vocation. Now I got rollies, all in rotation. Hop on a jet just to take a vacation. Remember the moments was trapped in the basement. Now the hard work is all taking me places. Swatting all black like we trapped in the matrix. Bet on myself and go ball out in Vegas. Living a life like I'm rich and I'm famous. Don't see the grind that I know that it came with. I ain't make it this far for myself, yeah. I had to prove to everybody else. I had to set them straight. Yeah, I had to ball, so I had to renovate. I know they hate when you elevate. The second of losses, I'm